Hi, and welcome back to the Doghouse podcast. Today we have a great panel. Everyone's back. The Coyotes did win a game, so I have returned from the Shadow Realm. But let's jump right back into it. We got Jimbo, Connor, Austin, and myself, JJ, and we're going to start right away with the Philadelphia Flyers. We know it hasn't been a good season for them. They've gone this year, they've played 41 games, they have 13 wins, 20 losses, 8 overtime losses, and we were just talking about them last year. What's going on? It seems like we were, half of us were kind of going, oh, are they going to continue on this downhill trend this year? Or no, it's Philly. The other half of us was arguing they bounce back. They kind of do this every year. They go soft and then not good. Well, this is a team that made many moves, and clearly it hasn't been working. So let's just hand it off right away. What do you guys think the problems have been in Philly this year?
Definitely not Carter Hart, right, Austin?
Carter Hart's been too good. He's just sometimes he giveth, sometimes he taketh. Having that positive save percentage when Rasmus Ristolainen's on your blue line is honestly impressive, though. So I can't really dunk on him too hard. I would definitely take a shot at the forward core. I would take a shot at poor trades. Maybe James Van Riemsdyk was only having 10 goals in 41 games despite making $7 million. There's just so many issues here. What's going well for this, kind of garbage franchise right now? I can't see anything going well.
I mean, the one thing I can see is they have a lot of young guys in their roster, right? That means their young guys are getting chances to play, but that doesn't help when you're trying to compete, right? You're trying to contend, trying to make the playoffs. A young guy, a young core, does not help.
And how many of them are doing good? We haven't heard a single thing about a young, good Philly prospect.
We got Morgan Frost has been doing good. Joel Farabee's been doing decently.
Farabee's good, but he's not exactly a rookie. Cam York's
he's 21.
Good. Yeah, but he's not going to carry you to the playoffs.
No,
he is a solution for a team in the future. This is not, you got Claude Giroux, who's 34. This is the time that you need to strike while the iron's hot. You don't need a 21-year-old who's looking to be good.
No, exactly. That's my point. They got a lot of young guys that are 21, 22, 23, or even 24 years old. And they're got good potential and they'll help you in the future, but none of those teams, or none of those guys, I should say, are going to really carry you to a playoffs. So depth is definitely an issue for Philadelphia, who's a team that is oh yeah, we have to win now. Especially since they're so close to the cap. Their cap situation is just a nightmare right now.
I just want to quickly say, with all the trades they made this offseason, and all the moves, and it looks like they thought they were ready to go. I mean, they brought in Ellis, they brought in Ristolainen, they got rid of Nolan Patrick, so a young guy who they drafted very high. So it felt like, oh, Philly's going up. Shane Gostisbehere, gone. He's playing fantastic in Arizona now. It's almost a point every 2 games on one of the worst teams in the league. So I just wonder if there's a misconnect where Philly thought they were better than they were, or thought these moves would make them better. Remember, they gave up things to get rid of Gostisbehere. I mean, the Coyotes basically got him for free with some things on top to take him. So I think there's a disconnect. I don't think management truly knows where this team is or where it belongs. And I think we've seen that the last couple of years. Voracek, and another big name gone, Voracek. And Cam Atkinson is second in points, but Voracek's gone too. So what's going on? Konechny hasn't been scoring.
They felt comfortable enough to get rid of some of these big names over the last 5 years or so, and there was just nothing to back up, right? Nothing to fill those voids. You bring in Ristolainen, and he's a big body. He got 9 hits for me the other night. Absolute beast on the hitting side of things, but pretty trash defenseman overall, right? Austin, defensively?
Buffalo in the offseason hired one of the best analytical minds in hockey, and within 24 hours of hiring him, we traded Ristolainen. He is a tire fire of a defenseman. And they paid a lot for him, too. They gave up Robert Haig, who actually has better numbers defensively than Ristolainen, and a draft pick this year, a second-round pick, and a first in the summer. They went all in, and, to JJ's point, it's definitely a management problem. But there's also, this inability to accept their mistakes. Did you guys all see that quote from Bobby Clark, Philly legend, who's now, a senior advisor or whatever, and he was like, oh, we didn't want Nolan Patrick, we wanted Cale Makar, but, our guy took the other guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Baloney, you wanted Cale Makar? Nolan Patrick was supposed to go first that year, They have this inability where they go, "Oh, it's not our fault we suck. We actually wanted to do all these amazing things, and then we just didn't do them."
Yeah, it's a lot easier looking back now, going, oh, why did we wanted to draft this really good guy? It's kind of easy to get away with that.
Yeah,
Talking
like
about
this.
big names they have though, Kevin Hayes has 9 points. He's
How
making
many
seven
games?
point one million for a
for
very
5
long
more
time.
years. I mean,
Yeah,
that's true, but I mean, Kevin Hayes kind of gets a little bit of a pass, and I think we all know why. He did have quite a tragic ending, or his brother did have quite a tragic ending this summer, right? So, like that's got to weigh on a player's mind, and hockey is a very big mental game, right?
Oh, and obviously the tragedy that happened is way more important than hockey, and I hope everything he's doing, like for his mental health, and everything's going well.
The craziest thing is he's not the only $7 million guy on that roster that's not producing. You got James
No.
Van Riemsdyk, who has 2 years left at $7 million. James Van Riemsdyk has 16 points in 41 games, which is horrific.
And I would say the same thing with Van Riemsdyk. It's been, I know, and he kind of randomly brings it back every once in a while, and his scoring game returns, and he looks fantastic for a bit. But it's the same thing with that $7 million contract, and kind of most of those years hasn't really performed. So it almost seems like right as they're getting out of his contract with only 2 years left, they now have another one. So it feels like they've just replaced the contract.
Well, arguably they have a lot worse contract coming up because they have Sean Couturier. He has 8 more years with a no movement clause at $7.75 million.
And I mean, he looked how good did he look last year? I mean, weren't we all praising him in our episode? I'm pretty sure. So it just shows that there is a disconnect there, and the team is not playing. Maybe not to the best of their abilities. Maybe it's all the moves they've made, but there is something wrong. And I am going to put it down on management because how many coaches, how many players have we seen in Philly and nothing's changed?
And they go ahead and fire their coach, and nothing's changed.
No.
well, I mean, they replaced their coach with Mike Yeo. Like,
Mean yo to
Team
yo.
yeah, you're emptying one trash bag and putting in another. And this is a problem that stems deep, like not just the team. You look at their AHL affiliate. This is kind of where you look for the future guys who are going to be good. And like Morgan Frost was doing like decent there. He was almost a point per game. But like Isaac Ratcliffe, 10 points in 31 games. He's supposed to be like a young good player. Last year's first round, or not last year, the one before, Tyson Forrester, 9 games, only 3 points. Like, you're missing on draft picks, and you have Bobby Clark blaming everyone but the management, and yet they still miss every year. And this year they didn't have a first. They traded it away to get, Rasmus Shit-Alainen. Like, you can't keep doing this.
Well, and doesn't Giroux end this year as well?
Drew ends this year.
ends.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, for how long was Giroux up there, right? Up there, it was him, Voracek talked about, maybe not at the same level as Crosby and Malkin. Well, not at the same level. But at one point in time, Giroux was probably one of the best players in the NHL.
Yeah.
And they've gone through their time, and yes, Philly was close when they lost to Chicago in the finals, but they didn't really look like beating Chicago, and their time's kind of over now. They've had these players who have played out their entire career or most of their career in Philly, and they were expected to do great things, and just never happened. And I wonder if they're just trying to still hold on to it for as long as possible.
They definitely are. I will say one good thing, at least for Philly, is they do have a lot of flexibility in their defensive core going forward. Beyond this year, they only have 3 guys that are signed for more than a year. So that would be Ivan Provorov, Travis Sanheim, and then as well Ryan Ellis, who are all signed for more than just the next coming season. Everyone else expires at the end of the season, so there's room to revamp.
And I wonder how many of those players who are even not expiring at the end of this year end up not on Philly by the time the trade deadline or the summer hits. Because I bet a lot of those players went over to Philly expecting big things, and that hasn't happened. It might be clear to Philly now that they might have to rebuild. When I look at the comments on any Philly post, it's the fans begging the team to rebuild. So it seems like the fans want to rebuild, which it's funny. It's usually the other way around. It's usually the owners rebuild and the fans don't want it, and they put up this huge protest. But you can tell the fans have just had enough with this roster and this core, and they want to see it restart.
But I mean, if the issue is management, do you trust Philly's management to handle a rebuild? Right, like their scouting has been like hit or miss.
As a Coyotes fan, I can say from experience, I'm sure Austin would agree as a Buffalo Sabres fan, sometimes that's all you can do is hope. So hopefully this time they get it right, hey? To all the Philly fans.
Apparently Ristolainen's also already spoken to management about a potential trade at the deadline because he's a UFA and he's not going to resign.
And there you go. No,
and then so that raises the question, do you trade Giroux?
He has a no movement clause.
Yeah, but he would waive it. He's 34.
Would he not? I think he'd want to go try to win one more time.
But at what cost and to who?
Apparently, Ottawa and the Rangers would be interested.
I can see the Rangers, but like, why would Ottawa want Giroux?
Because he's from Ottawa, so they think get him now and then sign him. Because if you get him now, you can sign him.
You're gonna really sell your vision there for the future to get him there.
Yeah. Well, rebuilding was supposed to stop this year for Ottawa, so
and that's the other thing.
That's why they're getting Giroux. They're ready to go. That would be a nice little send-off, but I don't think it's worth it.
If you're Giroux, why the hell are you fucking waiving your new movement clause to go to Ottawa? Like
to Canato, yeah, wherever the stadium is.
Yeah, it's not even in your hometown; it's outside your hometown.
Yeah, but that's your team, and like you'll be playing with Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk on the first line. Like, that's a fun line to play with.
He could go to the Rangers and be in a playoff spot. Play top power play minutes with guys like Mika Zibanejad and Tammy Panarin, as well as you got young guys like Capo Caco, as well as
but you're going to a division rival.
At this point, you're 34 years old, and you haven't won a cup, and your best year is probably this year. It might be time to go to.
This is not his last year. He's going to sign. He's going to sign a 5-year deal after this.
No, this is his last good year.
5 years in Ottawa.
You know a team loves to acquire multiple captains at the trade deadline? Toronto Maple Leafs.
What money? I can already see the article. Bring in the boy back home. It's
will Giroux be a fit for the Toronto locker room?
And then the article is always yes somehow. It's incredible how it's always yes. This is the perfect fit for Toronto.
But at what cost, though? Like we talk about all these packages and to all these different teams. Like, what cost is it going to go for to take the captain out of Philadelphia?
They would be selling high.
They can certainly try, but they lose him for free at the end of the year if no one takes him.
And that's the thing.
Yeah, you only have so much leverage, right? When he's on his last year of the deal and he's not going to sign, teams know that.
I mean, arguably one point is they can always say, "Hey, we'll eat cap to make it work for you if you meet us halfway." Because again, he has $8.27 million in cap space. That's a lot to fit.
They could easily take 50% of that, though. I mean, it's 1 year, so they're not going to need cap this year. Mm. It's gone, and it could help you get more, maybe. But I guess this goes back to trusting management and what Connor was saying earlier. I mean, they were paying Arizona to take one of Arizona's best players this year. So if that's the management going in, trying to trade this. A player who's played forever very well for Philly, you might not get exactly what you're expecting to get for him. And so I am wondering if they undersell him.
All I'm saying is clearly you do not watch the Doghouse podcast, because I said Ghost of Spear was playing well last year. I said it, and they clearly didn't listen.
That's also as management, how do you justify that to your fans where you go, all right, in the summer we gave up picks so a team would take one of our better players, and now we are going to, just because we needed money, and now we're going to eat salary on our captain just to get something for him. We also gave an arm and a leg to get Rasmus Ristolainen, and we're going to flip him at the deadline for probably less.
Yeah, sometimes it just looks bad.
Is anyone going to give more than a third for Rasmus Ristolainen?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think Buffalo would get a fifth for him, and we got a first and a replacement defenseman.
Yeah, a lot of teams could use that big body. That goes a long way in the playoffs. It's more valuable in the playoffs, right? To have those
He's right-handed too, isn't he?
Not for those defensive stats and penalties. He is horrible.
I don't know.
You know who?
Playoff hockey.
Playoff hockey's a little
no
different.
such thing as penalties. No such
He's
thing as
playing worse
penalties.
than Eric Goodbranson.
This is sounding like the exact press conference that the Philadelphia GM said, that he's going to be bad, but he'll look good in playoffs. And now look where they are.
and
I'm
now
just
they're
saying
not
you
going to
can't
make it.
make it to the playoffs if the guy is so bad he's tanking your season.
Exactly. Look at Buffalo past 10 years.
Okay, well then let's kind of shift it to the next topic on Philly then. If you guys, and I'll hand it off to you individually, if you guys were in charge of the Flyers right now, what moves would you make to help them? And would it be a quick fix to try to save this year, or are you thinking more long-term rebuild?
You got to get rid of Giroux and Ristolainen. Those are the obvious ones because you're going to lose capital somewhere else. But you got to bring in a good coach. Just sell the farm, sell whoever I could. James Van Riemsdyk has no movement clause. I would even sell a guy like Travis Konechny.
You'd get rid of Konechny,
If you're going
one of
full
their
rebuild,
youngest, best players. Well, at least last year. This year he's not been as good.
if
But
you're
he's still
going
up there.
rebuild, you have to commit to a rebuild.
Yeah, but there's cutting a little bit too close to the bone.
I mean, the haul you get from Travis Konechny alone is going to be better than anything else combined.
I don't think you'll get that much of a haul for Konechny.
I guarantee you, Konechny, if he was on the block, would get more than Claude Giroux, Rasmus Ristolainen, James Van Riemsdyk, and Cam Atkinson combined.
Okay, yeah,
Good luck getting that cap.
A good 24-year-old is going to get more than a 34-year-old, 32-year-old who only has 10 goals and Ristolainen. Yes,
But that's what I mean. He's your only asset. Other than that, where you're going to get a bunch of third round and fourth rounds, if you're going to commit to a rebuild, you need first rounds and you need prospects.
I think trading a 24-year-old who signed long-term on a cheap deal and plays the Philly way, that's too far. You're cutting too close to the bone at that point. That would be like Arizona trying to flip Chychrun. Like, you're just fully gutting the roster way too far.
Which we are.
Yeah, you have to keep some parts of the rebuild and something for the fans to watch, right?
Yeah, but there is stuff for you guys to watch. You got young guys coming up like Morgan Frost, Cam York. You got a great goalie, Carter Hart.
Well,
right? If you're going to commit to a rebuild, that's what you should do. Commit to the rebuild.
Is he going to continue? Hart's already been hot and cold with this team that was supposed to make the playoffs. Do you think Hart will continue to be this elite good goalie if you basically sell every single thing Philly has and then just go good luck for the next 3 years until we hopefully have a team that can be competitive? Because I think that'd kill his development.
Not to mention, so many Philly prospects are not that young. Hart's 23, York's 21. Konechny's 24, so these guys are about to hit their window. Might just be better to retool and build around them than blow it up and.
But to do a retool, who are you going to be able to move? Like, look at some of those contracts. James Van Riemsdyk, $7 million. Cam Atkinson, $5.875 million. You got Ryan Ellis, for what, $6.25 million. You got Sean Couturier starting next year. $7.75 million, and Kevin Hayes over $7 million. How do you retool around that young core when you have basically your top six locked up with a bunch of guys who can't produce?
We got some good guys in there still. Like, Cam Atkinson's been great for them, so you just hold on to him to keep him producing. Ryan Ellis has been good. Couturier is good. Cam
Atkinson's 32 and he's small.
Yeah, but he hasn't shown any signs of declining yet. Been playing well.
Yeah, but he also has been playing with Giroux, has he not?
I can't say. I haven't watched a ton of Philly, but he's still been producing. Like, a retool is definitely a reasonable thing for the Flyers to do.
Let's hear your take. Sounds like it's retool. Do you have much to add to your take, Austin? Or
I wouldn't do a full blown rebuild. Like, I'd flip guys so I could get assets for. So like Giroux, I'd definitely be out the door. Keith Yandel out the door. A couple of these guys out the door. But you still got a lot of good pieces, so you keep the ones, like Couturier, Van Riemsdyk, because you're not going to get anything for them. And you throw a bunch of young guys up in the top six, you see how they do. And then at the end of the year, you know what you got, you know which young guys you want to keep, you know which ones you don't want to keep. And then you just kind of, have another shitty year, get the young guys some more games in, and then just build around this new core and have Couturier kind of lead the way.
Sorry, I got to ask, you I know this is nitpicky, but you said Keith Yandel? Guy makes $900K. Why get rid of him?
Because he's a UFA. You're not going to make the playoffs, so send him to a playoff team who's going to want him.
because if you're that playoff team, you know this guy has never missed a game in his life.
That's
Yeah,
also
true.
I think he just set an Ironman record tonight.
think-
And
So
he's
you know
yeah.
this guy isn't going to get hurt. You know, tap on wood. He is a leader. I know in Arizona we used to jokingly call him Captain Keith Yandel, or Captain America even, and he is a good offensive defenseman. I think a team would take him. It won't be as much as he once was, but why keep him at that point? He's going to retire or sign somewhere else for a year. James, I guess you're going to be the deciding point of view on your style of taking the Flyers from bottom to top. So what's your take on what you do with the Flyers?
Well, I think one thing's obvious, they're not going to make the playoffs this year. That's already far gone. The East is almost set as is. It's not like the West where there's teams fighting. They're so far behind now, halfway through the season. Like, there's not a shock, This season's done, There's no way they have that bounce back year that we were expecting, based on last season. So, immediately you start talking to players, right? So you talk to Giroux. What is he thinking? Do you even have an option to sign him? If he wants to go somewhere else, try and win a cup, it's a no-brainer. You have to flip him, otherwise you're going to lose this star player for nothing. So immediately you have to make some sort of moves. The question is, when you trade him, do you look for the long term or do you look to the short term? Where we see different answers. You're right. So in my opinion, I do agree. As Austin was saying, like there's connecting. You got some young guys to build around and Hart. I still think you got to give him a couple more years. You can't give up on Hart right now. So you have a good goalie, you have a good forward. I think you try and go for. I still feel like there's good pieces there. So maybe it's not quite time for a rebuild. If things blow up next year, I think maybe then you pull the trigger. I wonder if maybe you go for someone, like you go for a defenseman, maybe you go for Klingberg if you have the cap. He wants out of Dallas. And then
So you're committed.
And then you commit to next year and you hope for the best and make some smaller moves in the off season and you just hope that when, Hayes come back and Farabee are better, you hope they come back and have stellar years. I still think that's a possibility for the Flyers. I don't think their whole core needs to be blown up right now.
But doesn't that just take you back to the same spot if you just go after these big name free agents that are near 30 and sign them to like massive deals? You think Klingberg's signing for under $7 million? No way.
Especially because he had a pretty good deal up until now, so he might be like, it's time to.
When you look at the
bank
price
a
for
little.
defensemen nowadays, that's a good point. Maybe you're probably net losing cap compared to Giroux at this point, because he's probably going for 10 mil.
Giroux's not going to go for more than 7 mil.
No.
But like that's what I mean. Like it's just better at that point to stick with a guy like Claude Giroux, who's knows the locker room, knows the organization's fan favorite, as opposed to bringing in another guy who's very close to 30 for $7 million, like Thomas Hertel.
Well, at this point though, it's kind of out of their control, right? It's all in Giroux's hands. Like, has he come out and said? Does anyone know? Has he come out and said what he wants to do? It's been pretty quiet, hey?
No, but I if he wanted to go, I don't see him as the type of guy that would say he wanted to. I feel like that would be handled behind the scenes, if anything. He probably still loves Philly, even if he does go somewhere else, and will always remember Philly's being this great city where he played pretty much his entire career, or almost all his career.
Yeah, his entire career. He was drafted by Philly.
Yeah, so if he goes somewhere else, almost his entire career. But I think if he wanted to go try it somewhere else, he would keep it on the hush-hush, because I feel like that's what all legends do. I feel like they don't want to leave their city with a bad memory or a bad taste left in the mouth when you do leave. So I think he'll be honorable about it if he does go. If I was in his shoes, I would want to go win. I mean, I assume every player in the NHL, maybe not every, but most players do want to win.
Yeah.
So
to me, Claude Giroux just feels like Jerome McGinley, in the sense that he's the captain. He got a chance at a cup at a young age. Nothing has happened since. His team sputtered and sputtered and sputtered in the playoffs ever since. And now he's just going to get gone.
There's enough negative happening right now, and a negative outlook on the future at 34 years old. If you really want a cup, you want to leave. You don't want to be there any longer.
Is that how you want to end your career, though? Cup chasing?
Absolutely. If you win. Look at Corey Perry. He hasn't won, I know he won way back, but he's been cup chasing, hasn't won one. Imagine
he
he hadn't
looks
won
like
one
a
at all.
clown.
You know, if he loses in the final this year with Tampa, then he would look like a clown.
You say
cannot
that, but
deny how bad Iginla looked at the end of his
Okay,
career.
no. Okay.
Yes,
No,
yes.
no,
That
no,
is a
because
sad end
It's
to the
different,
career.
man. It's different than Perry,
It's not
man.
different.
Perry, no, it is because Perry's been moving around year to year on a 1-year deal. Like Jerome, in my defense, he signed a 3-year deal or something with Colorado, right? It was a multi-year deal, and was he wrong? No, that was a great young core. It just didn't. It just wasn't time for them. But
Then what did he do? Then he went to
LA?
Pittsburgh. And then he
I
went to
thought he
Boston.
did,
no, that was
And
first.
then he went to LA.
That was before.
Pittsburgh was
LA
first.
Yeah, it was Pittsburgh, then Boston, and then if I remember, he went to Colorado, and then did he finish
then
with
LA.
LA?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Colorado
he
and
finished
LA.
with LA.
I'm pretty
So
sure.
like he saw, he did this, he figured, maybe moving around trying to pick the hot team isn't going to work, and most of the time it doesn't, unless you pick Tampa last year, right? Then you get lucky. But I think he saw the young core with McKinnon and those guys, Landeskog in Colorado, and admittedly it didn't work out, but like he wasn't wrong, man. Like I feel like that's the way they do it. You pick a team that you think has a good chance in the next 3 years, and you just go for it. You don't move around every year. You pick one team and you just stick with it. Because I don't think Philly has it in 3 years.
Patrick Marleau also has been chasing the cup. Joe Thornton as well, of note. And if you want a goalie, Dominic Hasek chased the cup when he went to the Red Wings.
Whoa.
Kind of went to like the best team.
No.
Yeah, he went to the best team.
Going to like the
He
best
didn't chase a
team.
cup. He didn't sign with anyone. He got traded. He got flipped to
I wouldn't say
Detroit.
that's a chase
and
at
then-
all.
Yeah. and then he won a
Okay.
cup.
Ginla got traded from Calgary. What's your point?
How
And
long
then
did
he
play
signed
in
with Boston.
Detroit,
and then he
too?
signed with Colorado. And then he asked for a trade to LA. That's
Yeah, because
cup
Calgary
chasing.
wasn't going to sign him. What do you want? Like, he gets traded from the team. You can't be like, oh, you have to end your career there when the team is like, okay, we're rebuilding, we're not going to sign you.
I guarantee you, if he wanted to stay, they would have signed him.
No, they
I
won't.
guarantee you.
No, it's very well known that he didn't want to do it. Like, the
And then,
Feds weren't
okay,
gonna sign him.
why didn't he stay with Pittsburgh? Why didn't he stay with Boston?
Because he thought Colorado had
Because
the better
he
young
was
core.
cup chasing, goddammit.
I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with,
I agree.
I do think, doing what a Perry is doing, I do think that looks bad, but I think to compare that to what Ginla did is not correct.
Okay, what if Corey Perry signs 3 years with Tampa? Will you then say it's okay?
I don't think he's going to sign 3 years with Tampa.
I think he's going to sign. What if he does? Will it then be okay?
I stick to my word. It's okay. He's
Okay.
he's not cup chaser when he signs 3 years.
Wow.
No, I think it's still cup chasing. For Corey Perry especially, it's cup chasing.
Oh, Corey Perry's different, man. It's Corey Perry too.
Corey Perry's doing it for the shits and giggles. He's already won a cup. He doesn't
Yeah, I was
care.
gonna say he's already won. He can do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah. It's fine. In his way, it's funny. I have a good giggle
Oh.
out of it.
I think it is time. We have got a little sidetracked off Philly. To if there are any final words on Philly, now's the time, and then I think we should move on to our next subject, which is the Edmonton Oilers. So, any last words on Philly before we head out?
I guess all I'd say is pretty obvious pretenders. I mean, they weren't even in the contention, so they're just, I guess, not even a question. Pretenders.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that statement. It felt like they made all these moves. The new sheriffs are in town, and the Outlaws won, unfortunately.
I was gonna say with Philly, they gotta be the worst team this season. No matter, like, they may not finish last at all, but when you have almost all your losses and almost half of your games as losses on 2 lose streaks, like, you're just playing so fucking shitty. To me, that's a new level of shit.
Yeah, you didn't go down the way I thought you were with that. I
What?
thought you were going to talk about
You
because
have
of all
in
the
2
moves they
months,
made.
Worst
two
team?
2 months, 2 10-game losing streaks when you're supposed to be pushing for playoff
You know
contention.
what?
Yeah,
I would
You're the
say
worst team.
performance based off of all the moves they've made. They were one of the most underwhelming teams with how they performed. But I mean, Montreal was in the Stanley Cup final last year, and
Yeah,
I
but
know
Montreal's
they probably
been-
shouldn't have been, but they are dead last.
Yeah, but Montreal's also been grinding away and barely making the playoffs for 6-7 years in a row now. As well as
But
they also
made
have
the
no
cup
one,
final.
They made the Cup
Yeah,
final,
and they're
they
missing their star
traded-
goalie, and they're missing their captain, and they're missing half their defense. They're a shell of what they used
See,
to be for
no,
injuries.
I would
You know who
excuse
was
that,
missing?
but Arizona's missing everything.
You know who's missing their star goalie and their captain? Team in the finals. Stamkos and Vasilevsky didn't start the season. There's no
And Cooch
excuse
got
for
hurt
that.
Yeah, but
again.
they're bad.
And
Cooch got hurt
Cooch
again.
got hurt.
For a
They're
month,
all
for a
back.
couple months.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's not like they did
And,
good.
and Vasilevsky didn't miss, like, he's out months. He missed, what, like a couple weeks at most?
Montreal was making moves to win the Cup final again, and they're worse than the most horrible NHL assembled roster in the history.
And they traded and took Arizona's #1 center for Carolina's first. So
Yeah,
I think that's a really bad move. If you give up a first, it's not theirs for their sake, luckily. But then that team beats you 5-2 at your home arena or 5-something to overtake you. That's embarrassing.
Their owner backed up their GM when he drafted a sexual assaulter and said, "I am fully behind him" during the season, and they still fired him for doing that poorly.
That does not have anything to do with the worst team of the season. That's just a horrible
That shows how
hockey
bad
culture.
the team was doing, that he's willing to put up with drafting a sexual assaulter, and this team fell apart so hard that he was like, "I just can't keep you hired. I have to fire you."
That was before the season started, first and foremost.
That's
and
my
second,
point.
That's just Montreal being a bad not corporation, but hockey culture and a bad organization as a whole.
They will put
If
up
we're
with
talking about
so
just
much.
the worst team,
Yeah, they will put up with so much
Philadelphia
bullcrap.
is still the worst to me.
No chance.
No, I disagree. When LA didn't make the playoffs the one year after they won the Cup and they were still like in the fighting range, it was huge. It was like, oh my gosh, they just won and they're not even making it. I know Montreal didn't win a Cup, but they went that far. Was it a bit of a fluke?
Absolutely.
Looks like it now.
Complete fluke.
Absolutely. And they only made it in because of the divisions and everything. But they still went to the final, and now they're dead last. And that is a huge drop.
Let me frame it like this. Would you say Buffalo was the worst hockey team last year?
Hands down, yes.
Okay, but Jack Eichel and half our players and our goalies were hurt. Are we still the worst?
Also, yes. The Flyers
Okay,
also
so
have a ton of
then
injuries, too.
there's no excuse for Montreal. You said, well, it's okay because they lost their goalie and their captain. No excuse. They're still the worst. Injuries is not an excuse. Checkmate.
No, but the difference is that Montreal didn't lose 10-plus games multiple times in a row this year. They're bad, but they haven't lost 10-plus in a row.
Well, they didn't need to. They've only won, like, how many?
You have to be like a special level of horrific team to fucking just miss 10 games in a row. Just not win 10 games in a row.
Well, Montreal's only won 8 this year.
Yeah, but they haven't lost 10 in a row.
I can't speak up for that, but when you've only won 8, it doesn't matter how many you've lost in a row. I mean, you can split 8 wins across an 82-game season, and you don't lose, and you might not lose a certain amount of games in a row. Doesn't mean you're doing good.
No, I'm not saying Montreal is like the God-sent team and they shouldn't be considered in this conversation. I'm not saying that. They should absolutely be in the conversation.
You know what?
For the most part. But my money and my vote is for the Philadelphia Flyers. Worst team of the year.
We're all just jealous we don't have 24 cups. That must be it. That must
Connor,
be it.
can you tell me the second line of the Arizona Coyotes?
I couldn't tell you the second line of most teams. What's your point? I can tell you the second line of the Pittsburgh Penguins, my second favorite team.
The second line of the Arizona Coyotes might be a starting lineup in the ECHL, and they have more points than the Montreal Canadiens. This is not like Montreal is the worst franchise this year.
Yeah, but here's the difference. Those guys have something to play for in Arizona. Those guys are looking for contracts. It's like
Those
look at the Detroit
are playing
Lions
for their pool beside their mansion in the desert.
No. Look at the Detroit Lions. This year were just horrible, just god awful. The worst football team in years. But they played their hearts out. They had something to play for, and that's what Arizona's doing.
I need some clarification for Austin's second line, because Arizona changes their lines so much that I'm looking at the lines thinking of all the possible combinations, and I'm like, it's endless. Like, you can put that line in so many different possibilities, it's still that bad.
Top
I don't think that's an
defenseman from
excuse.
Arizona, Janice Moser, has a better win percentage than the Montreal Canadiens.
And one thing I just noticed here too, Montreal Canadiens have a projected cap hit $30 million more than the Buffalo Sabres.
Also, to Austin's point about the whole injury thing, Montreal has played almost 2 full NHL rosters this year because of that many injuries. The Sabres did not come close to that last
We
year.
started Michael Hauser in net. Michael Hauser.
Caden
God
Primo.
damn it. Caden Primo is a good-looking prospect. Michael Hauser's
So bad.
31, and he was an AHL backup.
A good-looking prospect with a 384 goals against.
Yeah,
Was he the
because that's how
guy-
much
was
their
he the guy
system
in the-
sucks.
Was he the guy in the shootout against Arizona last year? And I went, uh-oh, he's in trouble. He hasn't been watching Christian Dvorak play hockey. And then he did the same move he always did and dressed him out, like took him out of his equipment basically, and then won the game for Arizona. But is that who you're talking about, or?
Last year? No, because we didn't play you guys last year.
Yeah, the
Oh
division's
right.
man.
Sorry. Was this the year before now? No, he
Would
got
have been-
picked up. No, sorry, he got picked up when Buffalo lost him. Who picked him up after Buffalo last year?
You're thinking of Jonas Johansson.
Okay, Jonas Johansson. Well, anyway, never mind. So we were getting sidetracked, though. So let's move on to our next topic, which is the Edmonton Oilers. So I would say this is a tale of a team that started the year, everything was looking fantastic. This was a team full of haves, and now it's quickly turned into a team of have-nots, except for 2 players, really. What are your
Surprise,
guys'
surprise.
takes on the Oilers? Yeah, I mean, who could have seen this coming? I know we're all going to talk about how they only have 2 star players, so maybe let's start with a little bit of a different take. One of you guys take it away. What do you think the problem with the Oilers have been this year?
If I was an Oilers fan, it's pretty obvious what most of them are thinking and going to say. It's Mikko Koskinen. You know, to all Oilers fans, this whole season, or at least the last kind of 20 games or so, has rested on that one player, on his fault. Everyone's blaming Koskinen. So I think I'm not saying that's true, but I'm saying that's what all the fans are saying.
To quote Koskinen, I've had some bad games, but I can't score goals.
And
They've been
I
shut
know
out
that.
how many times?
It doesn't matter how many saves or goals Koskinen lets in. It doesn't matter if you get shut out. Exactly like you're saying. If you can't
Exactly.
score-
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if he lets in 5, he lets in 1, 3. If you only score 1 or 0 goals a game, it literally makes no difference, right?
So my take, I agree with Koskinen. I can't score. Because I think the problem with Edmonton is they can't score. Simple as that. If you look at their top players for goals, I mean, obviously, Draisaitl, McDavid, their points, 37 games played, 36 games played, 58 points for Draisaitl, 55 for McDavid. Perfect as always. After that, the next highest goal scorer on the team is Zach Hyman with 11. So already that's a pretty big drop. Zach Hyman started the year off very hot. So how many of those goals came at the start of the year? Puljujärvi's next with 10. Then after that, everyone's under 10. You can't have a team do well if only 2 guys are scoring the goals. What's going to happen is teams are going to figure out, okay, every play revolves around McDavid and Draisaitl. I know it's easier said than done stopping them. But if they're the only ones who can get points and you can focus down on just 2 guys and no one else is scoring, that is a problem. Especially when Hyman was brought in to basically just play alongside McDavid and tap the puck in. So how do you go from 2 guys who are amazing to after that a guy barely has more than 10 goals, no one's helping them? That's what kills me is their depth. They sign all these guys every year and no one can score. Nuge has 3 goals.
Yeah, but Nuge is more of a passer now.
And he's more of a passer now, but if no one's scoring, this was a first overall pick, keep in mind.
Can I
Nugent
say
Hopkins.
one of the biggest tragedies of the season so far, not just for Edmonton, just the whole league in general. Dr. Derek Ryan, 3 points, minus 12 in 33 games. Come on, like...
Ouch, I did not know it was that bad.
You either
so
live
bad.
long enough, you either die a hero, or you live long enough to be a villain, and he went from the Flames to Edmonton.
To be honest, I thought when they signed Derek Ryan that was going to be a great move.
I
Just
did
had
too,
a
I
bit
would
of depth there, but yeah, that just
Well,
hasn't worked out.
Derek Ryan, Fogle, Hyman, those were all like decent signings. And arguably from the free agency, that those are all cost effective and good signings. But it's just not clicking. So at this point, like when you have constantly a changing of all these bottom guys and you keep going out and getting new guys, is it on the players now or is it on the coach?
And they actually talked about that. Even the Edmonton coach, Tippett, said, you can't just keep firing the coach. How many coaches has Edmonton had? in a certain amount of time. Granted, it's pretty easy to say that when you are the coach, but it definitely comes with some backing. How many coaches have Edmonton gone through, and nothing's changed?
You know what the issue is? It's really easy to fire a coach and save face, but I feel like Edmonton's scared to do the ugly thing. You know, everyone talked about before last year when Buffalo fired their GM, and then their new GM, Kevin Adams' first job was to fire all the scouts. And everyone ripped into Buffalo, like how embarrassing, what a bad look, you fired your entire scouting department. Our scouts sucked. We couldn't draft anyone good. And obviously it's too early to tell, but our new scouts are seeming to like take a way better approach to things. I have never heard anything about a Edmonton scout being fired. And besides, you know, McDavid and Draisaitl who fell into their laps, they've always been poor scouters. And you can see it's affecting them. Because everyone's talking about the big names not performing, but Kyler Yamamoto this year is horrible.
Well, I've always said, in my opinion, I've always think he's been a bit overrated. I mean, when you're playing with McDavid or Draisaitl, I know he can play on the third line at times, and your main job is to get points. Yamamoto's main thing is to skate fast, get points, and he's not doing it. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Austin. You're absolutely right.
And like I know it's hard, you know, being a draft revisionist, but Philip Broberg in 8 games only has 1 assist. He's a -8. He is a defenseman. Defensemen take a bit longer to go.
He's 22.
Yeah, but the
Or
pick
like 20,
after
not
him,
22, 20.
the draft pick right after Philip Broberg was Trevor Zegras, who was known to be good in his draft. This wasn't like an unknown talent. It was at the time the Broberg pick was made, it was called a bad pick. Broberg wasn't supposed to go to like 15, 20s, and he went top 10.
But if you're Edmonton, you were always like, what was one thing that's consistent with Edmonton for years was poor defensemen. It seemed like that was a move you had to make. I don't agree it should have been made at that pick. You probably could have traded down.
You always draft best player available. You add Trevor Zegras to this roster, how are they doing?
Well, they have a lot better line, and maybe if they have Zegras, they don't have to go for a guy like Hyman and use that cap somewhere else. Or
To sign a
another
defenseman.
tough guy or another.
Yeah.
And it's funny watching this Edmonton team because you're right. For years they never had defensemen, and now they have all these defensemen and they can't score. And I would argue their defense isn't even that great. Clearly not, and their goaltending's not fantastic. And I'm saying that with the wall of Smith behind me.
I would say that the defense is not bad, though. Darnell Nurse has been all right. He's kind of having a down year, but they have a rookie defenseman right now, Evan Bouchard, who's been playing goddamn great.
I think James and I are on the same page here. I cannot believe some people just said a defense that has Cody Ceci, Duncan Keith, and Tyson Barrie in it is okay.
And that got rid of Bear too.
Yeah,
which I still think.
And they have Chris Russell is still in the NHL.
Shot blocking legend, man. Did you see that?
Did
you see the
Chris Russell,
man? The golden shin
okay, get fact check.
Okay, they got him a golden shin pad.
You can tell who the Flames fans are when an ex-Flame player's name's brought up and they immediately sit up a bit more. They're be like, hey, whoa, yeah.
What, JG, what are you talking about? I have never cheered for the Flames in my life.
That is true.
I think
you've cried about watching.
I think it's pretty obvious, you know, from looking at the roster and this discussion. It's just been really eye-opening for me that I never really thought about this now. But I think you guys hit the nail on the head. Like I think Edmonton relies too heavily on expensive, middle-aged, signings for secondary scoring and not cheap, young talent. Because they're just not able to get that cheap young talent. So the downside is you have to go out and get externally like a Hyman, and you're paying top dollar for a free agent. But you could probably get in the same production, like Austin said, you draft Zegras for cap minimum, or for the young guys. So I think that makes a huge difference when you don't have the young guys performing, and you just don't have the cap to sign.
I am gonna take a little bit of a different approach here. It's not that I don't think Edmonton can't score. They can score. They don't. They're top 15, the top half of the league for goals for. But what really hurts Edmonton, and I know obviously that's going to be heavily weighted by the two-headed beast that they have.
Exactly. Yeah,
but
exactly.
what they really is hurting the Oilers is their goals against, their PK, and their goaltending. All of those rank in the bottom 10 of the league. They get hemmed in their own zone, and then they can't get that puck out.
And how much of that do you think happens when McDavid or Draisaitl aren't on the ice? And the other guys are clearly not scoring.
Well, yeah,
So
but like
what are they doing? If they're not scoring, and some
it's not
Edmonton fan
McDavid or
might tell me they've been in the offensive zone. The fourth line's always in the offensive zone doing something. Well, clearly they're not doing enough. All these other lines, and if McDavid and Draisaitl have to get 2 points a game every year just to even think about qualifying, that shows there's a lot of weaknesses, and that shows to me that their team can't score.
I mean, you're not wrong, but at the same time, when your defensive end, or like not your defensive end, but your back end can't get that puck and win those battles in the corners, and they're just getting hemmed in by the third, fourth, and second lines of whatever team they're playing against. That alone is the issue. You don't even give your offense a chance to score, right? Like when your defense can't win those puck battles in the corner and can't make those outlet passes, you're not going to score anything.
That's fair. But if they've made all these moves on the blue line. They got rid of Bear, brought in some other players, gave out some big money to some
they've
players. They've
made some of the worst moves on the back end. They let Adam Larson go.
They traded for Duncan Keith at $5.5 million.
Exactly.
It's pretty bad.
They signed Cody Ceci. They got rid of Bear, who's a good puck-moving young defenseman. Like, nothing's good. No back moves have been good. They've been okay with managing their forwards, but like their back end has been horrible.
And especially with Edmonton fans, we were kind of talking about this with Philly fans going, do you trust management with a rebuild? I'm not saying Edmonton should rebuild, but even a retool. If you're an Edmonton fan, how many times does this happen where it's, we need to retool again, we need to rebuild, we're finally we have all these great players, everything's great, and it's gone. And it feels like they've traded all the players that they had, and now have a huge problem for all the players they trade away. I mean, Hall's gone, Eberle's gone. Those are guys who could put the puck in the net. Even if they were a little overpaid, especially Eberle towards the end of his career, while now in Seattle, he can still score though. And now they don't have those guys. I would say their defense isn't up there in the NHL. I wouldn't say it's a top defense by any means, but they're paying them like they are. Their forward core, a lot of players are getting paid a lot of money, and they're not doing anything. So with Edmonton, I think we can say it's management as well, especially with their history. But then what do you do? Every couple of years, do you just restart? You get the next Connor McDavid and then go from there? Like, what moves do you make as Edmonton? Because you've done this before.
Yeah, I also think like a big issue too is like it's very clear they're conflicted in the office. So in this past draft that just happened, Jesper Wallstedt was on the board when Edmonton could pick, and he's projected to be a franchise goaltender. Like, I'm very high on Wallstedt. I think he's going to be better than Askarov and Spencer Knight, the two other goalies who went, in the first round recently. And they traded down to take Xavier Bourgault. Their reasoning behind that was they said, well, we're not trying to win in, 4 to 5 years when Wallstedt is, ready to go. We want to win now. So Xavier Bourgault, his ceiling is like a third-line center. But he's going to be ready really quickly. He's physically developed. He's playing lots of games right now. So they come in with a strong message of, we're winning now. We're drafting around that mentality. Get guys who can be NHL ready the quickest, even if they're not that good. But then Ken Holland comes out and he says, we're not going to trade our first and we're not going to trade any prospects. We don't believe in that. We want to develop and we want to, take it slow and take time. We don't want to win now. So, you're McDavid, you're sitting in the room and, they're doing all these stupid moves at the draft. And then they come in and they go, well, we're not going to buy at the deadline. We don't want to get, Klingberg's available. We don't want to give up for that. DeBrusk is available. We don't want to give up for that. So they just they're wading in the pond right now. They don't want to do anything.
Not to mention they can't afford to buy at the deadline.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I mean, they've kind of put themselves in a situation where they don't have the money to make moves. Yeah, Nurse goes to $9 million next year.
They also have $6 million off or projected cap space next year, and they have to sign Puljujarvi and all their bottom six.
And it's their deep core, man. You look at the cap hit; it's all on the D. You got Nurse 9.2 kicking in. He better have a better season ASAP.
And I just think it's laziness too, because what are we talking about? Their issues is their bottom six, lines 3, 4, and a bit of 2, and their defense, the lower end of their defense. This is the year where it is so. There's literally 2 NHL teams that are just bargain bins for bottom 6 guys, Buffalo and Arizona. And we're not even charging that much. You throw a third to Arizona, you can get a bottom 6 guy who's pretty cheap. I don't know why they haven't. I don't know why they haven't called Buffalo, Hinostroza Colin Miller, like these guys who can play.
Hinostroza in Edmonton. He's a very fast skater. Archibald is a fast skater in Edmonton who played in Arizona. Maybe get that chemistry back with some speed. Why not?
So, sorry, guys. I think you don't understand because you're not a fan of a team in Alberta. Teams in Alberta have a very specific mindset. They have a boys' club. They have a specific mindset for guys they want. And once they get their guys, that's it. They're set up for the year. They don't do anything else. And if they're making any trades, it's going to make their team worse. That's
I forgot about Perlini, so we could do a full Arizona revenge tour on the Edmonton Oilers, and they would guarantee make the playoffs if they did that. So,
wait, Connor, that's a bit of
your bets up now. Put your bets up now.
That's a bit of a bold stance. I thought Calgary was still in on Eichel.
Ooh.
It doesn't matter if you're one of the final two teams if your package is just shit.
I wonder if we'll ever know. I wonder if we will ever know what the package was.
I guarantee you it would have been like something like Chris Tanev in a fourth or something like that, and that would be it. Not even Chris Tanev. Are you kidding me? Trey Levin doesn't trade defensemen.
He trades 4 defensemen and gives up draft picks for them at Travis Hamonic, if that was him.
It was Travis Hamonic, and
we can save that when we talk about the Flames, because I want to kind of nail that point home.
Oh, that is true. Okay, so then my next question is for about the Edmonton, then I'll hand off to you guys, is do you think this is a season that could easily be saved? If not easily, do you think it could be saved at all?
Yes.
I know we're all gonna go. Yeah, of course. I mean, when you have the best player in the world and Connor McDavid, I know Draisaitl's amazing. Anything can happen. You know, they could be a team that's one move away, or they just find their mojo again, right? So, kind of like us talking about Philly last year, where we were like, who knows what this team's going to be like this year? Edmonton this year, what do you do? I'll hand it off to you guys. What do you do?
First things first is I hit up Dallas's GM and try to get one of those goalies.
Yeah.
For the too many goalies? Then
Dallas has too many goalies, and you need a goalie. Mike Smith and Koskinen are not it.
It hurts, but yes. Mike Smith is signed for another year, though.
Could you hit up Boston, get a goalie?
I don't know about Rask after
that. Not Rask, but say that Boston management is still pretty positive on Rask. They've got 2 guys. They got Olmark and Swayman.
I don't think they'd get rid of him.
You're not trading Olmark. And if you are, you're not trading
get rid of Swayman. There's no way they'd get rid of Swayman.
I know this is a bit wild, but you know, because of all the injuries, Buffalo's used so many goalies, and a lot of them have shown they can play in the NHL. So when everyone's back, Buffalo's going to have 6 goalies. Craig Anderson, Malcolm Subban, Dustin Tokarski.
This seems like
just worse than my Philadelphia team.
This seems like just replacing what they have with worse or as good at best, depending on the night.
Craig Anderson is a pretty elite goalie.
I looked up Subban's stats the other day, and I stand by my statement that future considerations is a better deal than that goalie.
Yes. Not a fan, clearly. But, okay, so you make those moves. Let's say their scoring doesn't get back into shape. Let's just say, for this example, the other NHL teams have figured out their system. Then you're not scoring. So now you have a goalie, but you're still not scoring. Because what if that's the problem, is McDavid and Draisaitl just can't do it all by themselves every night?
The next move, and I don't believe it's necessarily the offense. I think there's a lot of decent pieces in the top 9 for Edmonton to make this a decent offense in the league. If I'm Edmonton and I'm still having struggles getting wins together after getting a new goalie, I'm trading for a better defenseman. I'm fixing my bottom pair and my second pair, because that's the only way you can do it. That's the biggest thing, is like, you can't have Duncan Keith just getting hemmed in constantly, or Cody Ceci getting hemmed in constantly.
So who do you get rid of? I feel like you got to get rid of one of his contracts.
Get rid of both if you can.
Who, Keith and Ceci?
Ceci?
Well,
yeah.
Keith is done out next year, so you might as well ride it out and then trade him if you're not going to make it, sort of thing.
So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there not teams tanking looking for draft picks?
Well,
Duncan
Keith?
Would Arizona be opposed for like a second round pick to take Duncan Keith for a year and a half?
Duncan Keith has a no move clause.
I was thinking, well, is this going to come down to Duncan Keith? Is he back? I know at the start of the season there was some vaccination questions with him as well, so I don't know. I think he did end up getting vaccinated, but
playing, yeah.
That could play a part in where he goes.
Well, he only wanted to go to Edmonton because he wanted to play with McDavid.
So he might just not move at all.
Was he from Edmonton? Was he from Edmonton or no?
He's from Winnipeg.
Okay.
So he knows what it's like to live in garbage cities.
Damn, okay.
But yeah, he only wanted to play for McDavid. He's not going to waive that.
When the Buffalo fan says that and gets away with it, I mean, okay.
The worst thing that will happen if you go to Buffalo is you'll have a boring weekend. The best thing that will happen if you go to Winnipeg is you'll leave with only one stab wound.
No, the worst thing that will happen if you go to Buffalo is they force you to watch 5 Sabres games in a row at gunpoint in the Pagula's booth.
They not even at gunpoint. They pay you, and it's still the worst weekend of your life.
And they give you a knockoff jersey too.
Yeah, they have your name spelled wrong on the back, even though my last name's only 4 letters. They still misspell it.
And none of them were right, actually. They got all 4 wrong.
In the wrong order.
It wasn't even close. It was a good attempt. But, I mean, with Edmonton, I think they had this problem last time when they were trading Taylor Hall, is every team knew how desperate they were for a defenseman. And they used that. New Jersey ended up using that to their advantage when they gave Adam Larson away for Taylor Hall. Is that not going to repeat itself now? Do we not have teams that smell the desperation in Edmonton? They know Edmonton has not a lot of cap to make moves with. So all the leverage is on the teams with cap, and they got to know the fans aren't happy in Edmonton too. There is always that Canadian market pressure, especially in Edmonton where, you've had Wayne Gretzky and now you have McDavid. But with McDavid, it's not really going the same way as it did with Gretzky. You're struggling. And not because of him, but you are still struggling. So our team's not going to use that, kind of like they did before with Taylor Hall, to try to screw Edmonton almost, or make sure they can get as much as they can from Edmonton.
Well, yeah, that's how the business works, right?
Well, I know, but it's hard. It's easy.
Dog world.
It's easy to say, if I'm the GM, I'll just go and make this trade, and everything will be fantastic. We'll get all, it'll be like an NHL simulation. I get all the players I want. At the end of the day, we win. At the end of the day, this is a team in Edmonton. We're Canadian. We all know a lot of Canadian teams players don't want to play for, especially Edmonton and Winnipeg and Ottawa that are a bit more cold or a bit more out of the way. But people don't want to go there. It's hard enough getting players in Canada anyway. On a struggling Edmonton team that has 0 cap to move, I think it's a lot easier said than done to make these moves. And I think teams are absolutely going to use what they've done before, and yes, what they do every time they make trades. But when you look at Phillies managers last year, it didn't look like they had that same sense of other teams are desperate. We gotta make as much as we can. They sold everything for basically nothing. So it does go both ways, and of course every GM's trying to get the best they can, but we've seen Edmonton be screwed over before by it. Are we not going to see it again when they try to make these moves?
Literally in the exact same situation they were last year.
Exact same.
Like exactly the same.
And no team is going to, no team that might even face Edmonton is going to want to give them that final piece that makes them this fantastic team with the best player in the league on it. And Draisaitl, who I'd say is a top 5 player in the league. No one's going to want to do that unless they're giving up a lot or they're in the East and don't fear ever playing them, is what I'm saying. So I feel like it's going to be quite hard for Edmonton to make a change, and every time they seem to make a change, they end up in the same spot. So maybe it's time for new management, but that'll never happen. Never in Alberta will that happen.
Okay, but speaking of Edmonton's management, and I want to ask the boys this, who's the worst manager, Ken Holland or Chiarelli?
Oh, Chiarelli. I mean...
No.
You disagree?
Someone posted Chiarelli's moves. They're not as horrible as we thought they were. They're nowhere near as bad as Holland's.
Ooh.
See, because Holland didn't do well in Detroit. So I was very surprised when they brought him over after it seemed Detroit was stuck in the same place Edmonton was, where they were just trying to rebuild but couldn't get any better. Maybe you have a point. I mean, obviously now they have a very good GM. so Detroit is making the right steps, but I don't know. I think maybe it's just you remember the Peter Chiarelli show, and maybe Peter Chiarelli didn't have the benefit of playing with McDavid and Draisaitl for as long, but he had a lot of first-round picks that were wasted, so I would stand by that.
Keep in mind...
Yeah, but he had also one of the best free agency signings of all time, Milan Lucic. With the way he's been playing, that contract's a steal.
See, again, the Lucic
I
contract.
wouldn't
Remember
say
they
it's a steal, but
that was a terrible contract. That was a terrible. And then they had to trade him. So Calgary now they're paying Lucic less money to play there. Well, Edmonton's paying Lucic and Neil, and none of them played. So that didn't end up working very well.
Okay, so let me frame it like this. What's Holland's best move?
Pugliarvi, getting him over and getting him in the top 6.
Okay, but that was mostly done by McDavid and Draisaitl.
I mean, I don't think we've given him enough time because all the big moves he made were for this year, and they haven't looked very good so far. So right now, I would say he doesn't really have many good moves, but in a year or two, we could go, oh, Hyman, or oh my gosh,
exactly. Yeah, it's not much data.
Because Hyman started
moves,
hot, right? If he turns it back on, by the end of the year, we could all be going, oh my gosh, I can't believe we were even talking about Edmonton and Hyman.
Hyman started hot, but a 30-year-old, grinder winger who can score was not what the Oilers needed. Whereas when you look at the move Chiarelli did, he tried to fill the holes. Traded a handful of picks to get Cam Talbot, who was amazing for the Oilers for a lot of their runs during his time. Got Oscar Klefbom on an extremely cheap deal, $4.167 million per year for 8 years. Obviously, horrible injuries have happened to Klefbom. But that was one of the best contracts when they got him.
I agree. Klefbom was amazing when he stopped playing. I mean, what if Klefbom comes back at some point too, right? That could fix a lot of Edmonton's defensive problems.
He traded Ben Scrivens for Zach Kassian.
Yeah, but now you look at the contract of Kassian, and I'm pretty sure it was Chiarelli who signed the extension. I could be wrong, but
that was
Holland's to re-sign him. Then that's a really bad deal.
So Holland actually might be the worst GM when you think about it. He has one good signing, and that's the new Nuge one. 8 years. It's a little long, but 5.125 for Nuge.
Yeah, but
compare that.
How many first round picks did he waste?
Chiarelli. Chiarelli signed Leon Draisaitl 8 years at $8.5 million, and look at that contract.
That's a really good contract. That's one of the best contracts in the league, Draisaitl's.
They hated Austin because he spoke the truth. Chiarelli was not the worst GM.
Wow, maybe it's been Holland the whole time. The gun pointing at him. It's been Holland the whole time.
Well, think about it. Because you got the Zach Kassian, you got the Darnell Nurse, you got the Tyson Barrie, you got the Cody Ceci, you got the Mike Smith. Where's a good signing?
Not only
Barrie
that,
was good last year though.
Yeah, he plays on the power play and he just racks up a shit ton of points. That's it.
Still
not to
did his
mention,
job.
He signed Connor McDavid to McDavid's deal, which is a fantastic deal.
Well, any deal.
And it really couldn't have been any more.
You say that
1.5 million more.
Yeah, because San Jose offered Tavares $13 million in free agency. $13 million. Just to let that sit in. So, and also he traded Martin Gernat for Patrick Maroon, who was amazing for Edmonton. He was solid on that wing with McDavid for that playoff run. And keep in mind, we talk about that failed playoff run, but how close did they get? Remember how Anaheim won? Ryan Kessler falls on Talbot and pulls the pads open.
Right.
They almost made it to the conference finals.
It's crazy how what if Kessler didn't hold the pad? Who knows what could have happened? And just how different their season could have been, and then how different everything else could have been after that. But it always seems like whenever something bad like that happens, teams take a very long time to recover from it. The Flames goal that didn't count, Buffalo with the foot in the crease. It just seems to shock teams when they have these bad things happen to them.
JJ, I just gotta ask, what did we do to hurt you today? Why'd you have to bring that up?
Austin brought up Chychrun potentially leaving, and now I'm angry.
And also, he made moves that didn't work out, but in hindsight, I'm like, that's a good move. He traded Ryan Spooner for Ryan Strome. Ryan Strome has been amazing. If he found that game in Edmonton, imagine how helpful that would have been.
That is true.
Also, to that point, Ken Holland's trade history. Can you name the best player Ken Holland has brought in on a trade to Edmonton?
Ken Holland has the worst trade in Edmonton history because of that one trade for Keith, where he gave up things, and he said in an interview when one of the reporters, and granted Edmonton reporters aren't the best, they can be a little pissy, but one of the reporters asked, why did you give up so much for Keith? And he says, well, did you want me to get him for free? Yes.
Yeah.
So many guys went for free this year.
Yes.
And if not free, I mean even
Paid.
less. Yeah, less than what was given.
Buffalo got Will Butcher and a 4th for nothing. Arizona got Ghostis Fuhrer a 2nd and a 5th for nothing. Like, yes, get paid for it.
Well, okay, not everyone can be Bill Armstrong. Okay, I can't put that on everyone. I mean, when Arizona has the best GM in the league, it shows. Okay.
The Duncan Keith one's a real bad one, but he also traded for Mike Green from Detroit, which was horrible.
Didn't he not play a game? He played like 1 or 0 games or something. Like
he took that contract and just I'm out of here, boys.
I forget if it was COVID related or what it was, or he got hurt, but I don't remember him playing like many games at all.
He hasn't made a good trade. He's the guy who traded Thomas Tatar to Vegas, Gustav Nyquist to San Jose.
You know, it's just it's going to be extremely difficult for Edmonton because it's already hard enough to get people to go to Canada before the pandemic, right? No one wants to play in the Canadian market. It's harder now because of the restrictions that Canada has compared to America. And it's even harder to bring people to Edmonton because no one wants to play in Edmonton, especially with how outspoken the media has been lately. And Ken Holland doesn't have the way to talk guys into coming to places. So they have to trade for guys or they have to draft well.
You don't think that just the word McDavid makes people want to play in Edmonton?
No.
So you think McDavid's lost that kind of buzz factor? Because I
think definitely not, but like
I think that's a great selling point right there.
Everyone always overstates that. When you look at free agencies, it never actually has that much sway. Like, Pittsburgh never signs big guys. They never have that pull because no one wants to live in Pennsylvania. Doesn't matter if Crosby's on the team. How many guys have Washington signed to play with Ovechkin? Nobody.
It's all about going to a place with no tax.
Yeah, but you keep in mind, for years, JJ, Washington did try to get guys every year. Remember when they signed Shattenkirk? They tried, but there's not a lot of guys who want to go.
I remember when they signed. Yeah, well, no, absolutely. But what I mean is, you guys are saying, no, the draw is gone. The draw is not gone. There's always going to want to be someone who wants to play on that line or wants to prove themselves. Do I think the draw is as strong as it once was? No, because unless you're playing on that actual line, you could end up playing with a bunch of nobodies for the rest of your career. And I don't mean that to make fun of the Edmonton squad. I mean, if you're not with McDavid or Draisaitl on that line, you can very quickly end up playing with people we've never heard of before or haven't been playing very long. And it's Edmonton. I know we live in Calgary. We do have that natural rivalry, but it's the same here. It's cold. The media's on you. It's a Canadian market. Do you really want to put up with all of that just so you might potentially play with McDavid? Probably not.
I would argue it's probably one of, if not the harshest Canadian market for a lot of fans. Because, Montreal and Toronto are, just way bigger markets with a lot more pressure, it seems. But, that legacy that Gretzky left, Edmonton never forgets that. So you were constantly having to bear down with the Gretzky icons and the glorious years in the 80s.
Also, the media may be dickheads in Toronto and Montreal, but you get to live in Toronto and Montreal. What's there to do in Edmonton?
Get stabbed.
West Edmonton Mall.
Yeah.
I like how I gave a proper answer, but I guess get stabbed's an option. We're not going to make many Edmonton fans out of this
episode. Here to make fans.
Yeah, we're not here to make Edmonton fans. You heard it first.
No, it's okay. When we start talking about Calgary, we'll bring them back.
Yeah, true. Don't running back. Yeah.
No way.
All we gotta start talking about is the arena deal, man.
You know what? We could talk about that right now because there's 2 arena situations that are kind of in the news right now. One of them is obviously the Calgary Flames have lost the deal with the city. There is a new mayor in Calgary. I don't know who this other team is who's having arena problems. Maybe someone can remind me.
I don't know. It's a team you would never think of for having arena problems.
No, never.
When I think of this team, I think of
Arizona
stable ownership.
Never heard of them, but that will all be sorted and taken care of in good fashion. But let's start with Calgary, and jokes aside.
You know what? I've been the harshest critic on the Arizona Coyotes. Our viewers may not know this, but JJ and I fight twice per week on this in every group chat.
Twice a day.
Twice a day.
Twice a day, yeah.
But I'll give it to the Coyotes on this one. At least they're trying different things. Glendale falls through. Okay, we're gonna go to the university. University falls through. Okay, we're gonna go to Tempe. They're trying to make something work. The Flames have been trying to beat this one dead horse for my entire life, and they still haven't got it done. It's the same deal. The same deal.
You're forgetting about Calgary Next for like 2-3 years there when that was the future up by what's that C train station that's
Sinalta.
That's a big part why that station's up in the air for people not in Calgary.
Yeah.
It was looking so promising. Built. It was going to be on the blue line, which is the best line, but
it was too much creosote under the river. That's why it would have cost too much.
But and, I remember being so shocked. I'm like, this is going to be the best location for an arena. Why don't they just chip in to clean it? But now we see the owners not want to pay for a sidewalk, so I understand.
Wow, that's a little different. It would have been you don't know how much money that would have been to clean up. It would have been a lot.
It would have been a lot of money.
Well, no, what it was they had a deal. Then election, new mayor came in, and the deal changed. Obviously, it's a new mayor, so they're going to want to come in and get their side of the deal. I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but they want a new deal. Calgary was kind of like, we already had a deal, and they are a bit cheap. We all know billionaire owners are. And it just came down to, I think the Calgary mayor did say, though, it came down to 1% of the total cost being too much.
And what it came down to, it's not just that. That's that was, what...
It's a principle, too.
Well, yes, it is the principle that they changed the deal, and also it was costing more, but also the COVID costs, supply chains, and stuff like that. It is already costing close to $100 million more than the original budget over the last year. Prices for construction and just materials has gone up so much. So any additional costs they just need to. At the end of the day, it maybe is the right thing to do. Costs have gone up so much, they probably just need to do a new deal anyway, because the economics are not the same. They've completely changed.
And I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong on this, but because the first day of Giotti's new mayorship, she declared a climate crisis in Calgary. So I remember because a big thing about the New Deal that she was wanting to add was a climate fee.
Yeah,
because it's going to be such a big polluter. So I think that was also because with the other things that they're arguing about, that's a tangible thing. We're building a sidewalk. It's going to cost this much, and this is what it's going to look like. But a climate fee is just kind of this willy-nilly number. Right, so I think for Giotti, she's this is my platform. I need to stand on this, and the Flames are this is my money. I need to stand on this.
And normally I wouldn't defend the Flames ownership. Yeah, you can't accept that. If you're just going to take that the new mayor can throw on a fee whenever they feel like it. It's just going to be you're going to get extorted.
When costs have already gone up so much because of COVID, COVID is really what started it. I know things blew up over Christmas over this climate fee and the sidewalk, but at the end of the day, most of the costs have come since COVID, and when they made the deal before it, I think the whole situation has changed. So,
well, there was a great article written in the Calgary Herald about this, and it basically the deal was killed specifically just by the mayor. I know it sounds like a lot in the politics, but she was one of the 3 councillors that voted against it, and she's the only one that could call an emergency meeting to save it, and she called no meetings. That's why council had voted now that any new deal being made, she's not allowed to be participating in it.
And
and that won unanimously. 14-0 said, she can't be in this new deal.
Not a fan. Not a fan of the mayor, I guess.
And obviously, we're getting a bit deep into Calgary politics about there's a lot going on in the city council. There's a lot of people who are not happy chappies, but it's also the Flames. This has been a nonstop problem. And this is kind of where I give the arena more flack to the owners than the mayor, because it's not like this is the first time this has happened. How many years have we been talking about this? There's a common
2 mayors.
Yeah, there's been now 2 mayors. There's been a very clear common denominator in this problem, and I don't see it getting better. The owner of the Flames, he doesn't even live in Calgary. He lives in Switzerland.
Yeah, to be fair, what owner lives in the city that they own a team in?
They got to live at least half the time.
The Arizona owners. They live in Arizona. Let's go.
Yeah, and if they don't live in the city, they need to have, like JJ said, they got to have a house there. They got to have investments there. As much flack as I give the Sabres
there. The Flames owners do have investments in the city.
They would be very fine with pulling all of them out and moving them to Houston. They have investments, but not like other owners.
Every owner would move if they have a better opportunity for a better market. That's just the way the world works. That's how
I think you're
billionaires
giving
work.
this guy way too much credence.
No. I'm not giving him credence at all. I hate him, and he definitely has tried to strong arm the city and the fan base over getting this. But at the same time, that's not like too far off than what most owners would do.
You look at
yes.
other owners, and they've piled a lot more money into their cities than ours have.
I just want to add something on that. The walkway's not there anymore. It has been taken down because they're building the new BMO Center to get to the Flames Arena from the train station. But before they knock that down, which hasn't been knocked down that long, I saw a TV show, I forget the name of it, but I saw the little intro clip on Netflix. I might have brought this up last time we talked about the Flames. And they were filming a zombie apocalypse show, and I knew exactly where it was. They didn't have to do any decoration on that runway. You would have believed it was in a zombie apocalypse show. And I think that would have surprised more people if I told them they still use that walkway for our only top sports team. And that's what we use. I mean, the stadium's falling apart. And that's just what we see. And we've had some insiders who have worked on the inside tell us that it's even worse when you see the parts no one's meant to see. The stadium is quite literally falling apart. Concerts don't come here. They all go to Edmonton now. For a city, a whole event area is needed. And I think that if the mayor does let it go and nothing comes out of it, that will be a huge loss for the city. But I gotta say, she has to know the importance of this entire area to the city. Because if they're building a new stadium, it's going where the Stampede is. So this will absolutely be used all the time by not just the Flames. It can be used for concerts, for the Stampede, everything. This is something that could save this city. It's kind of insulting watching TV shows film apocalypse shows in your city.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's so much fun.
I know, I'm putting zero effort in.
It's like I'm in that show 24/7.
But in the city, I mean, look, Winsport's the huge thing here, Canada Olympic Park. It was built when the Olympics were made. A lot of this city's infrastructure and big sporting events were made for the 1988 Olympics. It's running out. They can barely hold it together anymore. I think the floods screwed the Flames over with getting a new stadium when they did, because they had to spend a lot of money to fix up the Saddle Dome. But now it's been way too long. I mean, it's the second oldest stadium in the NHL after Madison Square Garden, which has done a full redo, and obviously just by its name, we all know those are not on the same level. What do? You have to build a new stadium. So why are we fighting over the 1%? I don't understand.
Again, it's like Jimbo said, there's a lot that has changed in the new market, but there's also the principle of it. You don't want to give in. It's basically two stubborn heads don't want to give in, and they both have their principles, and whoever caves in first, they're going to have some kind of leeway, or they're going to lose a lot of leeway and power.
Well, if you're the mayor who's in charge, doesn't matter if it's our current mayor or whoever the mayor is when it does happen, or in any other city, and especially a Canadian one, where you lose the city's hockey team, you are not getting reelected. I can guarantee you that.
They won't move the Flames.
Why not? They have the worst stadium. The city has actively been fighting you on building a new one, and you have greener pastures next door, and where they're going to give you all this government money. They want you to build these billion-dollar stadiums.
Okay,
it's not the
two
same.
reasons. Two reasons. One, the Flames are one of the few teams in the NHL that actually turn a profit. So moving a team that turns a profit just seems idiotic in a lot of aspects in the NHL. And then two, how much money did the NHL make from Seattle's expansion as well as Vegas's expansion? You don't make any money if a team relocates. If anything, they're going to expand the league before they would relocate a team.
Yeah, but you also got to think, that's all the NHL wants. Yeah, but the NHL owners is at the whim of the owners. If the owner goes, no, I'm not doing it anymore, I'm done.
The owner has to have 2/3 majority to do that.
Because you got to think about it like this: the Atlanta the rest of the league could just be like, they made money. The Atlanta Thrashers made a ton of money, and they had a big following. The owners were like, I do not care, I'm pulling out, and that's when they relocated.
They lost money the last 2 years.
And
because they stopped funding
a lot of money.
All the
because the owners bought the basketball team as well, I believe, and only cared about the basketball team.
They only cared about the basketball team, but they lost a ton of money. But at the same time, you need 2/3 majority of owners to say, yeah, you can move the team, and as well, other owners and the league can be like, all right, you don't like it, you have to sell your team.
Yeah, but
that's also another thing.
this is more of a billionaire owner problem, but for how long are all these owners who are going, no, you can't move Calgary, gonna stay with that defense when year after year, Calgary has no plan of building a new stadium. It's already completely outdated.
Because again,
it's the worst. It's the worst stadium in North America, hockey wise. It's the worst stadium for a top level team. It's terrible. It's falling apart literally, and I know it has a
35
cool
years old.
shape,
I
but it's seen its
I will
time. How
argue-
many owners are going to go, I want my team that I own playing in that terrible arena on national TV?
they do not care.
There is a sense of pride in that.
There's a sense of pride, but you also understand. Like the billionaires didn't get there just solely on pride. They got there because they're driven by money, right? So why would they want to be like, okay, you can relocate? If anything, they'll just keep putting on the pressure to get an arena deal done in Calgary.
We gotta
Because
really
then
think,
all of the fucking expansion fees that come from the NHL go towards the owners. It's not the players who get that; it's the owners.
but there's only 2 NHL franchises besides Calgary that really benefit from them staying in Calgary: the Oilers and the Canucks. I guarantee you, the Boston owner doesn't care if they relocate.
Yeah, but when the Flames turn a profit, right? That profit's not shared between the players. That profit goes towards the owners.
Yeah,
Right,
but you can make
and
a lot more profit
you
off
can
of
you can
American
put that team in a bigger market, but I think if you look at Arizona, just because you have a bigger market doesn't mean your team is going to turn a profit. Even Florida, a team that's really good, does not turn a profit. They lose about $10 million a year.
But
Yeah, but Florida's a bit
if I do
different.
remember on Forbes, the last non-COVID year, the Flames only made 1.5 million in profit.
Yeah,
Which
but that's
not
still
a lot of money
14th
when
best
you're
in the
talking
league.
about. I
That's
know,
still
which is
14th
scary.
best.
But you also have to keep in mind
So
a
do you
lot of
move a team?
American owners buy teams to run a deflate. The Arizona and Florida owners have definitely done that in the past because they actually save money on taxes.
Florida
Like,
owner
I lost
especially
all
runs
this
on
money
defense.
and on my hockey team. Oh no, don't tax my billion-dollar industry. So funny enough, for those owners, sometimes it works in their favor. But my point is, if you don't have a plan, because we had a plan, there
Yeah.
was a deal in place, there was a plan. It takes years to build these stadiums. Years. And not during COVID. So during COVID, it could even take longer. How
Yeah.
long is every owner in the league going to put up with there's not even a plan in Calgary? And obviously, by the end of this year, they could remake a deal or make some adjustments or whatever. But for now, this is the second deal that's fallen apart. This is it. This is finally it. This is Calgary Next we're talking about here. We built
Well,
the C train station up in the air. How long are they going to wait and go, there's no plan? We're 5 years away from an arena, and this one's falling apart even more every year.
You could make the exact same argument about the Coyotes. The team
Well, the
is
Coyotes
falling
don't
apart.
have an arena. That's
They
the
don't have
difference.
they don't have an
you
arena.
need to have
They don't have a plan. They don't have anything going for them.
No, but I've said this. I've said this in private groups. The difference with Arizona and Calgary is Calgary only has one building they can possibly play out of, unless they build another one in Calgary. Where Arizona has so many possibilities, even though they haven't been doing great financially and maybe don't have the best reputation, they still have a lot of options. They can play with the Suns if they need to. They can try to make a deal with the university. If Tempe falls apart, I know Glendale's probably saying no now, but probably won't go back to Glendale, but who knows? And they have other options as well. There's a lot of just big stadiums and concert venues in Arizona, and especially in that greater Phoenix area, which encompasses all those other towns. So there is a possibility of, even if they end up somewhere for a year or two and then somewhere else for a year or two, and then maybe they get a deal done. I have a little bit of hope in that, not a lot. But the Flames, if it's not the Saddle Dome, they don't have an option in Calgary.
I got a couple points to put in, and I think pretty shortly probably should move into the actual team. But
Yeah.
my points, what my points would be is into some of the things that were said. Calgary Next was never a deal. It never actually got off the ground. It was just a pipe dream by the Flames, but it was never going to happen. I think that a new deal does happen soon. I think there's a lot of want on both sides to have a deal. I think the council, the city has expressed a lot of interest. They're actively pursuing a possibility of another deal, and obviously the Flames won the deal. And then the last thing I would say is don't underestimate how much extra money there is flowing around now. Maybe not as much on the city side, but on the private sector side, oil and gas companies, obviously what Calgary's known for. At the current price of oil, there is a lot of money flowing around right now. And if these prices continue, I don't see why that doesn't hinder into next steps in the deal here. So I think we do see a deal over the next year, at least good progress towards a good deal in the next year.
I do want to add to Jimbo's point there, his second point specifically. Calgary even has brought in a third-party arbitrator to this, so they're actually working towards a deal for this, and it will get done within a year.
I certainly hope so. Obviously, I think it would be a terrible thing for the NHL if it lost a Canadian team, especially the city I grew up in. I think that would be a big shame for the city. And I know the people of Calgary would lose their minds literally if the Flames win, their minds would be gone. They have nothing to watch every night. But
Stampeders.
I am just worried when it just seems to never end. It always seems to come back. Same with Arizona whenever it was re-signing the deal in Glendale, and it was like, oh, it's fine. We'll sign it again and we'll be fine. Eventually, time runs out, and we have seen tragedies where the Jets did move to Arizona, and we have seen Quebec move as well. So Canadian teams have moved before with strong fan bases. So it is possible, but hopefully it never happens. Okay, we should probably move on to our next subject now.
I think we should talk about something as ugly as the arena deal, the Calgary Flames. We didn't actually talk about the team.
I just want to quickly clarify. I do not think the Flames are going to move before the Coyotes if a team is to move. We just didn't really get into the Coyotes there. A lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on there, which we're just going to let happen, and we'll bring that up if it matters at another time. But continuing with the Flames, what's going on with the Daryl Sutter show? I will hand it off to one of the two Flames fans. You guys can fight over who wants to tell us about the Flames first.
All right. So the Flames have been pretty good this year, and if you look at all their advanced stats and all how they've been playing, just even watching them, they've been really good this year. However, in the last 12 games, they're 3-8-1. They've been outscored 35-45. And ultimately, when you look at this team and you look at those last 12 games, it comes down to two things. One, the lack of secondary scoring. If that team doesn't have, the top line going, there's no one scoring. And then two is that goaltending is kind of just fallen off a cliff in Calgary. In 12 games, they've only had 3 games where they had a save percentage above 900. I don't know any playoff teams that have a goalie that has a 907 save percentage or even lower than that. But when that's what your goalies are producing and you guys aren't scoring, what do you do?
You do what the Calgary Flames always do. You bite the bullet, you make it into the playoffs, or just don't. And then if you make it, you fail in the first round and you restart next year.
This team, during that 12-game span, Gaudreau and Tkachuk have 17 points in 12 games. And then everything else is just off a cliff.
I will say, Gaudreau, it has 44 points in 36 games this year. So I remember last year I said, if he's not getting points, he's not doing anything. Well, contract year, but this year he is getting points. So can't put the blame on Gaudreau this year.
He's been great defensively, too. He's actually been good defensively.
Oh, without a doubt, he's been the best player. Yeah. Other than maybe some would argue Markstrom, but in terms of non-goalie player.
Yeah, but when Markstrom falls off a cliff, the team dies. That's what's happened. They have 3 wins in the last 12 games.
Well, and if you're the Flames, especially as it comes up to this deadline here, what do you do? Gaudreau is a contract year, as we've said, but obviously they've probably been talking and trying to see if they can re-sign him, but we don't know anything about that, so we don't know how close it is. But if it's not very close, I feel like you have to trade him. There's no way you can let a guy above point per game not, just walk for free. You can, if you're in the playoff spot, try to just go for it one last time, but even so, I don't feel like the Flames are in a winning position to win the Stanley Cup. And if they try and go for it and lose Gaudreau for free, how far does that set Calgary back? Because now you don't even have Gaudreau to try to win you some games. So what do you do with Calgary? You guys on the trade side, or do you want to just ride it out? Hopefully he re-signs.
I think you got to ride it out. And the big reason why you're not hearing anything about trades is because right now, we know Gaudreau can produce in the regular season. That's not an issue. We know he can do that, right? But the issue is whether he can do that in the playoffs. I think it really comes down to if the Flames see nothing in the playoffs, they will let him go and go for a big free agent instead.
So you're just saying if they let him go, it's okay because they have cap space?
Well, the cap space they would gain would be helpful, and they could go for a guy like Tomas Hertl, for instance, a guy who plays both left wing and center.
Is he a free agent this
He's a
year?
UFA.
We'll see if he wants to restay with the Sharks.
And that's another thing, right? Like, I don't want to lose Gaudreau, but like I don't think the Flames are going to make a move, and I think Gaudreau's camp is the same. They're going to wait to see after the playoffs because that will really determine Gaudreau's, bargaining power and how much money he can command.
So, but the way you're saying that, it sounds like to you the Flames are for sure going to make the playoffs. You seem pretty confident.
They're in a pretty good spot right now.
Yeah, they do have a lot of games in hand, but we have to. I believe you guys said they were winning by like 6 right now, so they will jump up into the wild card spot if they do win tonight. But games in hands are great. It's what you do with them. So it is up in the Flames' court. We have to see how they do.
So why I think the Flames will make the playoffs is like if you look at the advanced analytics of this team, they're not bad. Like Edmonton, if you look at how they compare just to their own division, just specific teams, Edmonton ranks 5th or 6th on any given night, and that's like the overall how they rank. Flames are 2nd, only behind Vegas. And in like the total league standing, they're only behind Vegas and how they're performing at like an advanced analytical rate. That means they're doing good things. What the Flames are lacking is just that scoring power. What is it? 57% of all Flames goals come from Gaudreau, Lindholm, Kachuk, and Mangiapane. That's it. No scoring depth.
Those 3 people you have to sign this year, actually.
Yeah, and that's pretty terrifying. And the other thing is, Connor, that back at the beginning of the season when they were doing really well, winning lots of games, a lot of their wins were against Eastern teams. They were away and they were playing Eastern teams. But for some reason, Flames always seem to struggle against division rivals. And that's not a 2-point game. That's a 4-point game. And Calgary typically, and especially this year and in the past, they struggle for some reason against all of their division rivals typically, especially Edmonton. They cannot be Edmonton half of the time. And I think that's going to be a big deciding factor. Yeah, like you said, JJ, they got games in hand, but they got lots of division games coming up because they haven't played that many right now. And they have a lot coming up in a row after their big break.
You're absolutely right. Like when you look at the division, right, Calgary was beating Edmonton in almost every facet the last time they played them. They lost 5-3. Advanced analytics doesn't mean anything if you lose.
And the other thing is that's been really frustrating to watch is that they haven't been able to gain any ground or any space on Edmonton when they've been losing. Edmonton's been losing, so has Calgary. They've moved literally in tandem this whole season. Edmonton started well, Calgary started well. Edmonton started losing, Calgary started losing. So they've missed the opportunity to jump ahead of Edmonton.
Yeah.
Just based on they've been tracking the whole season.
We're forever the little brother complex of hockey. Whatever Edmonton does, we have to do it.
Yeah.
They're winning, we have to win. They're losing, we have to lose.
But I think the big struggle for the Flames is just going to be how competitive the West is. I mean, all the way down to Chicago. And Chicago's a bit more out of it once you start getting that low, but even Chicago could have a good run, and they're still in it. And that goes all the way down to, except for 2 teams. I think Seattle and Arizona are really the only 2 teams who I don't see it all coming back. I mean, Chicago, it's not very likely, but they could. And these California teams that we've been looking at, I don't think any of us predicted these California teams to bounce back as well as they did and stay up where they are. I think we all thought they were going to fall off, and they haven't yet. So that could be another thorn in the side of the Flames if these California teams go, actually, we are going to be playing very well, especially Anaheim, where the Flames are historically bad at playing them.
Flames have been good over the last 2 years. If you want to talk about historically bad, the Flames have lost 9 straight in Vegas.
But they've never won in Vegas.
Yeah.
Like
they've
never won in that arena.
Hey, the casino always wins. The house always wins, right?
House always wins, but the Flames are pretty decent against the Central. The only thing they struggle with is their own division.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they struggle with heavily. So yes, there is a valid point there. And it doesn't change, especially when you have like the need and the drive for like more scoring depth. When you have young, fast guys that have something to prove, like in Anaheim where they have Trevor Zegras, right? These guys have something to prove. They're going to try even harder. And they're going to outplay guys like Brad Richardson, Sean Monahan, Michael Backlund, they would get outplayed.
So I don't know if making the playoffs is as easy as you've made it sound, because, I mean, Vegas has 50 points.
Oh, no, and it's
the Kings and Ducks have 47.
It's not out of
and they've only
character
played one or two more games.
for Calgary just to drop the ball and go on a 10-game losing streak. That is, like, not out of character for the Flames, this score.
Absolutely.
I don't think the Flames have ever gone on a huge losing streak. It's more just like they can't get
They're
hot.
hot and cold. They get hot and cold.
But
I think this is a tough division. Like, I'm looking at the standing now, and it feels like almost every game in the West, except against two teams, is going to be a very important game for the rest of the year.
I mean, Jace,
who would have thought Nashville was as good as they were this year too, right?
I mean, Jace,
even Minnesota, they've
about
fallen a
the
bit.
California teams here. Calgary has 6 games in hand on all of them.
Again, games in hand are great. It's what you do with them, and obviously, if they are winning right now and go on a couple game winning streak, that's fantastic. But they are enough points behind where it's starting to go, you're going to have to win the majority of those games, for sure, just to be competitive. So even if you win all those games and then you're competitive, well, then you're just back tied. So then you still have to keep playing well, and you're hoping these teams aren't playing well, and obviously they want to get in the playoffs too. I just don't think it's going to be as simple as it as we put it out at the beginning, because these teams are playing quite well, and it is very possible that a Western team falls off, especially because every Western team seems to be keeping it competitive, but very well could be the Flames as well.
Well, it's going to be coming down to that final wild card. There's a lot of teams fighting for that final wild card. Minnesota's probably got, the way that things are going right now, they've got that. Assuming they don't move up in their division, they've probably got that one in lock. That first wild card is probably going towards the Central, almost certainly. So you have basically half, if not more than half of the Pacific Division, all around that same amount of points, and only 4 of them are going to make it in.
And that's what I'm saying. You may have these games in hand, but if James is saying a lot of these teams are Pacific rivals, they don't want to let you win. None of these games are going to be easy. And if all these teams believe they can make it in, they're going to fight even harder. Why not?
Historically, I would have agreed with you, but for the first time, Flames have an actual coach that is doing well. Daryl Sutter has done everything that I was, scared he wouldn't do. He's made his team an offensive team, a strong team, and a good top team to play against. So those will all translate to getting wins. And it's not like you have Glenn Gulletson behind the bench or Bill Peters behind the bench, some like half-ass coach that can't coach an actual team. We got an actual coach. And that's a lot easier to, get those wins when you're playing well with a good coach.
Well, would you not say all these other teams that have seemingly come out of nowhere and are doing quite well, that they're not playing well with a good coach or a system that's working for them?
I'm not saying that not. I'm just saying the pedigree of a coach that Daryl Sutter is a world-class coach. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just going to read you 4 players that play for the Flames right now. Trevor Lewis, Brad Richardson, Brett Ritchie, and Eric Goodbranson. Okay, now say world-class coach one more time.
That's not on him. What do you want me to do? He's a coach. He's not the GM.
Not play them. Not play them.
Yeah, okay, so you can't just say not play them. He doesn't have the ability to call up guys. That's on the GM.
Brett Ritchie has 0 points. Not play him.
Both goalies have more points than this guy.
Yeah, both goalies. I'm not saying but what do you want him to do?
28 games.
You can't call up anyone.
Man, I really hope there weren't people on this podcast last year saying how good Brett Ritchie is and how he's gonna. This is the return to revenge tour. Brett Ritchie. He's gonna punish everyone in the NHL, including me,
Just
for spitting down on him. Well, that didn't last very long.
Just you wait until he gets waived and picked up by somebody, and then he'll be a monster. Him and Sam Bennett will make the Flames pay for what they've done.
Wow. That is probably a record for the longest amount of time gone before Sam Bennett's name was brought up on this podcast.
Sam Bennett's exactly what the Flames need. He would have been huge.
Isn't that It's sad, but it's
It wasn't
true.
working.
It's true.
It wasn't working in Calgary, though.
Under Daryl Sutter? Are you kidding me?
He was good under Sutter. He was a Sutter player.
Yeah. God, could you imagine
He had served his time here.
Backlund and Bennett?
At the end of the day, I sleep at night because he was never going to play the way he's playing in Florida and Calgary. But he was never going to play like that. He needed a new start. It's easy to look at how he's doing now and say, wow, we should have kept him. Like, it would have been amazing.
Okay.
Exactly what the Flames need. He would have never done that in Calgary. Guaranteed.
That's fine. I agree. He probably would have not been this amazing guy. Do you think, how much is he making? $3 million in Florida?
For, I think, 4 something?
4 something, I'm pretty sure.
4? Okay. So he's
It
going to make
seemed
a bit
like
less.
A lot of people thought he was overpaying this summer. Like, it was enough that people were
It's
calling
not
overpay.
overpaid.
I'll have it in just a
4.4.
second.
No, it was pretty mixed. A lot of people.
Okay,
thought it was
4.4. That's pretty good. And he would have probably made less if he stayed with Calgary and didn't have that amazing run on Florida, right?
And
Yeah.
would have been paying taxes.
So, like, okay, like, let's say he's, like, making, like, 3.5 if he stayed with Calgary. Do you think he would have put up more points than 12?
Then 0 with Brett
Not
Ritchie,
even that.
so
Do you
yes.
think he would have put up more points than 12 points by now in the season in
Absolutely.
Calgary?
Yeah.
You do? Okay, yeah. Blake Coleman's getting paid 4.9 and he only has 12 points.
Yeah. Goldman's
Yeah.
looking pretty
Even
rough.
if Sam Bennett wasn't what he is in Florida, he still would have been better than what you guys went out and got to replace him. And Blake Coleman's 30, and he signed for 6 more years.
I mean, just with
the
this,
Coleman signing was bad.
like the Coleman sign wasn't great. But
Coleman's sign was brutal. Absolutely
The-
brutal.
yeah, but that's just a long history of the Calgary GM being one of no, if not the worst GM in the league. He is fucking horrendous, and I don't know how he still has a job.
I don't know how you guys are playing Brett Ritchie, Brad Richardson, and Trevor Lewis when you have 2 guys in Stockton who are a point per game and 1 guy who's under a point per game by 1 point. And they're all forwards.
Because our GM will not do that. He will not play it. I mean, to be fair to Daryl Sutter's point, you don't know how these guys are going to play in the NHL, and putting those guys in on the 4th line doesn't help them.
You don't even have to put them on the 4th line. You can sprinkle them in. You could do Johnny Gaudreau, Lindholm, Kachuk. Keep that line. Then you do like Mangiapane, Backlund, Peltier.
Yeah.
And then you can do like Phillips, Monahan, Dubé, and then I don't know who cares about the 4th line. Just get that to work.
Yeah, like that's a lot better, and like a lot of fans would probably agree with you there.
Yeah,
But
it's
that-
just you guys have the worst GM. He refuses to call up 3 guys who are NHL caliber right now.
Like, think about it this year. The money we spent on Eric Goodbranson and Zadorov, we could have used that money for a guy like Carter, what was it, Verhage and Duclair, and saved about $1.5 million. I don't know about you, but they look pretty good in Florida.
Like another way to
Where's
think about it
Valimaki?
is who would you rather have? Trevor Lewis, Brad Richardson, Milan Lucic, or Jack
Or-
Eichel?
Hold up. Luch? Luch has been playing good, so we...
Lucic has been playing good for Lucic.
No, even more than just Lucic. He's been playing actually like pretty decent.
He has 14 points in 36 games. He's playing good for Lucic. I'll give him that.
I'll tell you who I'd rather have. Maybe not Eichel. I'd rather have Reinhardt. I still
Reinhart.
think Flames should have made that trade.
Yeah.
And you don't get Coleman. I know he's a
I
center.
don't-
You play around the lines a little bit, but
He can
Reinhardt
play
plays
wing
right
though too.
Oh,
He
he's
can,
a
yeah,
wing,
he can
that's
play
true.
right wing as well,
Yeah.
I don't know why
which is what the
Calgary-
Flames needed.
I don't know why Calgary didn't go, okay, a first and Levi for Reinhardt. Okay, we'll give a first, Wolf, and another prospect. Done deal.
But with the way that they're treating Valimaki or Connor Mackey, why not throw one of those guys in? You're not playing them anyways.
Yeah,
Right.
Where's he been? He's only played 8 games, Valimaki. Has he been in the AHL or?
They
Was
sent
he
him down
hurt?
now. Or
Yeah.
they just scratched him.
Buffalo
So-
would absolutely would have taken a first Wolf and
Valimaki.
Valimaki. Yeah, for Reinhardt,
And
absolutely.
Valimaki could play in the NHL
Yeah.
for sure.
Why
So-
not make that trade? Throw in Dustin Wolf, and then at 12 take Wollston. Like, I'm not
Well,
saying
why are
Cornell's a
you-
bad pick, but like, why not take the franchise goalie?
Why would you bring in Gobranson and Zadorov, who play like basically the same game, and not leave a spot for a younger guy? Why would you bring in 2 old, exact same 1-year deals, just be tough, and then send Valimaki down?
Branson's
doesn't make sense to
bad, but it's surprisingly not the worst. The Zadorov one is
No,
worse.
you
'Cause
definitely put Gobranson down a bit more than he plays 17 minutes a night. If he was as bad as you say he was, the Flames would be nowhere near the position
I
they
mean,
are.
Flames are 3rd in the league for goals against, I think.
Yeah, they're 3rd in the league for goals against. Goodbranson's played the
Goodbranson.
best hockey he's played in his entire career in Calgary. I
Should
can't
honestly
say
get to see at this point.
Impossible.
no, let's go into Luge first. But Zadorov has been so bad. Not only do you give away a 3rd round pick for Zadorov, and you sign him as an RFA to a 1-year deal. What's the point? Like, honestly, what's the point?
Maybe testing him out. I mean, Shillington definitely came out of not nowhere, but for how well he started the year, it definitely seemed like that wasn't expected. And he has cooled down a bit now, but maybe they just didn't expect that. But even so, I just don't understand why you'd bring in the same player twice. And they didn't just give him like nothing deals. Like they paid Gabranson, isn't it like $2 million or something with
$2 million for Branson.
Yeah, like that's a lot of money.
And almost $4
and
million
it
for
didn't
Zadorov.
seem like they needed to. It didn't seem like any other team was interested. So it just seemed like out of nowhere that they paid him as much as they did. And I think he's had a decent defensive season. I think he gets shit on a bit too much because he doesn't have an offensive game. But why then bring in Zadorov? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Zadorov has been the worst player on the
Big
Flames.
man hit. Big man hit hard.
True, I forgot it's the Daryl Sutter show.
Zadorov's one of those guys who's like, he's so bad, but he's so fun to watch. He's the
But
Aaron
that's
Dell of
because-
defensemen.
No, it's the Rasmus Ristolainen of the West.
Exactly. You ever watch Aaron Dell playing goal? He's the worst goalie, but he is so fun to watch. Because I'm like, this man doesn't even know what he's doing. He's just having fun.
Ouch. Not a fan of Arundel, clearly.
Look up
also-
Aaron Dell's career save percentage, and you'll see why I'm not.
No, I don't have to.
Also, just to add, Killington is the 5th highest scoring player on the Flames. He's an RFA.
And maybe we should
So
touch
the
on that
top-
situation because there's a lot of signings to be done this offseason, and I have no idea what the hell
Andrew
they're going to do.
Pani.
Yeah, of your top 5
Shillington,
scorers, 4 of them
Gaudreau,
need to be
Kachuk.
signed.
Yeah.
Lucic, does Lucic come off, or is that
No,
next
next
year?
year.
It's next
Nope.
year, right?
So that's not going to
So-
give you any help.
So that's no good.
I
How
don't
you
know
guys
what they're
back
going to do,
end?
man. Like,
How are you going to pay Kachuk? He has to get paid a minimum of $9 million. Like, how are you going to afford
and
that?
Gaudreau's going to get 10?
Nine.
You don't
9
sign
to 10.
Zadorov.
You know what? If the Calgary Flames can hold out that long on an arena deal, they will let a player waste their career away in Siberia. All they care before they let them walk for free.
But
This
but
might have been the big plan after all.
Calgary
But
has
here's the thing,
31
JJ.
billion in projected cap space.
the last year
31 million.
Kachuk's deal is $9 million. So they have to give him, if they want to keep his RFA status, they have to qualify
Give
him.
them that.
Yeah, so at the very least, he gets $9 million.
Yeah, there's no rule on how many years, right?
It's 1 year.
It's 1 year, yeah.
So I
And
mean,
then
if they're
after,
paying him for
like,
1
if Kachuk
year,
signs his qualifying offer, it's $9 million for 1 year, and afterwards it's a UFA.
And
I think you take him around a very lovely tour of the Calgary Tower, and
go to
maybe you
Banff.
take him out to the mountains. Yeah, with Rasmus Anderson, who's a huge fan of the mountains, and
Yeah.
The issue, though,
just hope it he gets emotionally connected. Probably
the issue,
won't,
though, is
but
like the
you can
Flames,
hope.
his whole career have been dicking around Kachuk. They refuse to give him the C. You know, he's the best young player the Flames have had in forever. And yet they refuse to build around him. They refuse to commit to him. You know, there's always this news of the team doesn't like him, and they keep telling him to knock off his pesty play. You look at Ottawa. They embrace Brady. They love it. They gave him the C. They gave him 8 years right off the bat. They love his antics. They treat him like a WrestleMania star every time he's on the ice. You know, so if you're Matthew, you're like looking at that, you're like, wow, I should be appreciated like that. I'm better than Brady by a mile. And yet the franchise I'm on wants to bury me. They don't care. They were going to hardball the crap out of me this offseason.
I think Daryl Sutter has actually helped a lot because since Daryl Sutter has taken over, Kachuk is starting to look more like the get under people's skin Kachuk, the one that makes him the best he can be. You know? But
So-
Yeah, it definitely brings up a lot of questions.
What do you guys think they do? How do they get this guy signed? I don't know. I don't know how
You lose one of them, and it's going to be Gaudreau.
you
I
think
agree.
Gaudreau goes?
you
I
trade out
agree.
Monahan.
And so that's why I'm saying you trade Gaudreau at the trade deadline.
No, he's not going to trade that line. What is your
He's not going to. I know Trade Living won't,
Yeah.
but that's what you should do.
Yeah.
You trade him at the
I
trade
mean,
deadline.
it's going to have to be the off season.
You gotta trade him.
clearly.
You gotta trade Backlund or Monahan if you want to sign.
Who's going to
any of them.
take them? Oh, hey, here's Sean Monahan. He's 28 and has one rib that works and maybe an okay rest.
Yeah, it's
He'll score
6.3
8
million.
goals.
No one takes
Hey,
that
I know
Look at
I know
Rob.
someone. I know someone that would take him for a draft pick or two. And and his name is Bill Armstrong.
I don't think
And,
Tree Living, he can't sell picks and stuff like that. He already did that
Sean
a couple
Monahan,
years ago,
how would you
so
like to
no.
feel to be the number one center of the Buffalo Sabres?
Hey, Sean Monahan, how's it feel to play on the fourth line in Arizona? Because that's what we do to Canadian centers. So I hope you play well.
You don't even have to score. You'll play with Jeff Skinner. He'll put the goals in for you.
I think I thought about the kind of situation though here for Calgary. They're not like even if they do make the playoffs, which I do think they will, and they still have all these guys they have to resign. This team's not a cup contending team.
No.
And if you just look at the years, what has the GM done for this team? Like if Calgary wants to make the next step, like where does Calgary go if they make it to the second round and they're out early in the second round?
Well, they have to make the playoffs first this
Like,
year
what do you-
and get past the first round.
Like
which is
hypothetically,
hard
let's
for them.
say like Calgary gets past the first round and after making the playoffs, what do they do there? But if they get swept in the second round,
I think I think you'd have to do
Do you blow
management because it's the perfect time to do management if it's this year. Gaudreau's heading out. You've kind of lost that guy if he goes. Or you're bringing in the next guy to decide if they want to keep Gaudreau or not, and maybe he can sign him to a deal.
I
Maybe
think
he can trade him. But I think you have to if this year does not work for the Flames, or it's it's the same as every year, they make it or just don't make it and then lose if they do make it. It has to be management. You've tried coach. The players are kind of getting to that natural age where you should move on from them. So maybe a bit of that as well. But you've had Tree Living forever and nothing's come from it. So you have to change that.
I think if you miss the playoffs and you lose Gaudreau for nothing, like that's it. There's no coming back from that. And I don't know what Calgary's identity is going to be without Johnny Gaudreau. That's it. You have Kachuk. If he signs.
for a guy like Fertile, you'd have to.
With what money though? Kachuk's going to ask for 10.
Yeah, you can give Hurdle 10.
You can't give Hurdle 10 if you give Kachuk 10.
And then Mangiapane, how much is he making? And
And
Shillington.
we know his agent came out and said they want him to try the market when he can. I know it's an RFA, but they're only going to want to sign a short term. He's going to bet on
It's going to be Milan Lucic to Arizona for 2/3 go to Arizona, and then he finishes his career in Arizona, and then they have that much more cap space. Or it'll be something like that. Maybe if it's Backlund, although Backlund signed for a long time, isn't he?
Yeah,
Two
he's
more
got 2
years.
more years. At 5.
Oh, only 2. Okay, that's not that long.
Yeah, but like now
I know the guys.
2
like, the
years
young
doesn't
guys
matter,
suck.
man. It's like this year. You need the space this year, not 2
Oh, I know.
years.
And I know like your bottom 6 sucks, but you have to have a bottom 6. Your entire bottom 6 is expiring. And you can't just I'm all for the young guys, but you can't have the bottom 2 lines all young guys. You do need some experienced people there.
Again, most of those guys that we signed for the bottom 6 are just horrible. The highest paid guy is Tyler Pitlick at $1.75 million.
Hey, it's the return of the Troy Brower play. Okay, it's time to bring him back. It's Daryl Sutter's hockey. That's where he thrives.
You know,
Bring him back.
we clowned on them so hard for that, and Flames fans were like, "See, it's over," and then they immediately put Lucic on the power play.
Yeah, and then why is this
Yeah,
why is
this
this
not
year
working?
repeating itself? Yeah. How did this happen?
He's doing great.
You know, I think every year is a make or break year for the Flames, and Tree Living has kind of dodged the bullet, but I think he can't dodge it anymore. The trains are about to crash into each other. This is the summer where the Flames have to rebuild their identity, where they decide what they're going to be.
I would agree, and you've gone through the coaches, so you can't say it's the coach.
It's not
Kind of
the
like
coach.
Edmonton. How many coaches have the Flames gone through? And then even that, how many coaches have the Flames gone through who have coached another NHL team after they've coached the Flames? Not many.
So
As a head coach, not
Put
if
a
they
little
go somewhere
asterisk
else.
on one of those coaches as to why he never played or coached again.
Well, he did coach again.
In the NHL.
He went to where all the other bad boys go when they do bad things.
wait, which coach? I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Bill Peters.
Yeah.
Oh,
How do you not know what we're talking about?
Wait, what did Bill Peters do?
Yeah, where did he go? Where did he go? Did he go somewhere else?
I bet
He went to the KHL.
Oh, did he? Okay.
I actually
to
think
quote the Flames arena staff member working when we went to the game, like pretty quickly after he got fired, he said some not nice words. Some really not nice words.
I'm pretty
Very
sure he's
good guy,
coaching Reed Boucher right now too. So like quality guys in the KHL. But yeah, to just like tie it all together, the Flames just this is it. are they going to be, the Roaring Flames, or are they going to smoke out at the end of this offseason? I guess we'll find out. But I'm not optimistic. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
So you think they are pretenders and don't make the playoffs?
I think they are pretenders, yeah.
I don't even think pretenders. I think it's going to be hard enough. I really think if the Flames make it, it's going to be because they played well. Because a whole bunch of these teams were playing well, and it's just going to come down to whoever's playing the best when it matters.
They're just going to get their cheeks clapped by Vegas. So,
I know Vegas plays a wild card team.
You guys will squeak in as
they
a wild
either
card.
play Vegas or they'll play Edmonton.
And you'll get clapped either way.
Yeah,
both you're saying that Flames won't catch San Jose.
Whoa. Bruce Boudreau is bringing the Canucks back. Just you wait.
Yeah.
Stanley Cup final, here we go.
Yeah, I don't see this game better. I think they're fakers.
I gotta disagree. I think they're absolutely a playoff team. They're not contenders. But they're not.
Sorry. Brad Richardson, Trevor Lewis, Tyler Pitlick is a what team?
You say that, and then you look at how they've been doing. Like, yeah, they've been struggling recently, but you look at how they've done on the year. They've been playing pretty good.
They started hot, but so many teams start hot. How many times did Buffalo start the 10-game winning streak? Start of the year doesn't matter. It's not real.
Yeah, but Buffalo also had, one guy on their team, and that was it.
We were very similar. We had one good line and nothing else. We were just like the Flames.
I don't know. The same issues were brought up with Colorado a couple of years ago. They had one line, and they started spattering out. And that's why they ended up in the second wildcard spot. And then they went to the conference final.
Yeah, but they also had drafted guys like Cale Makar and trusted their youth and didn't sign Eric Goodbranson.
I'm just saying.
Put some respect on Richardson's name, Stanley Cup winner, Arizona legend, first of all. He's there to do his job for a minimum, and that's what he's doing, okay?
No,
yeah, I know. This is Sutter's
horrible.
wet dream from 2012. This team would win 6 cups back then, but...
I'm not saying they're going to win a cup. I'm just saying this is a team that makes the playoffs.
I agree. I think they make the playoffs.
I guess in a future podcast we will have to come back to this moment and see when the two Flames fans predicted them making it, and the two non-Flames fans being a little bit less optimistic and saying they're not going to make it.
Do you guys want to make a bet for Nando's?
I'm good. I'm going to hold off and wait until I have my bottle of tequila and Giordano comes back.
See, and just to clarify, that's if he signs with them, not trade. Trade doesn't matter if he doesn't sign.
No. If he comes back,
it was a free agent signing.
If he comes back,
no, that wasn't the deal. You go look at it again.
I will review the footage.
It's a signing. So, if he
either way,
if he gets traded here, he's probably gonna sign, right? But
I don't think he's gonna get traded here. I think he'll sign a 1-year deal though.
Guys, the Flames are making a trade this year.
No, I thought they were on
until the end of the year.
No, I could have swore I just read they're the last team in on Eichel.
Yeah, so if the Flames get Calgary Eichel, does that fix all their problems?
Yeah.
Flames fan, one Flames fan is gone. He's back. He's returned. He's returned. Clearly a touchy subject. Well, we have been going for quite a while now, so we can end it with the last question. But if anyone does want to have their final say on the Flames, now is their time.
I will hold my peace on the Houston Flames.
We're wearing the Coyotes jerseys. We can't even say that city name. It doesn't exist. It's not real. There is no place called Houston. I've never heard of it. So I guess for the final question is, we did talk about Jack Eichel before. Obviously he hasn't played yet, but he is. We have seen him in that red jersey practicing with Vegas. How do we feel about that? We do have a Buffalo fan here, so how is Buffalo doing from the spoils of the Jack Eichel trade, and what are our predictions for Jack Eichel with Vegas?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it's worked out better for Buffalo than I would have anticipated. I thought that Vegas got absolutely steal when it was first... It's funny, I remember, when it first broke and Austin was dead, radio silence for 8 hours. And I
think it was 2 days.
I thought he just threw his phone in the river and just left home and just started walking north to see where he could go.
Edmonton.
Yeah, to be honest, the caliber of player that Eichel is, it's hard to you look at the players and it's one of them was injured at the time, and and another unknown prospect, and not even a first round pick. I mean, come on, but
No, we got a first.
well, it's a first with Vegas, so it's not really first. It's going to be ball.
Yeah, it's gonna be like
so. But Tuck, since he came back from injury, has been really good. He's been over a point a game. And so if that continues, I don't know much about the prospect, the other guy, to be honest, to say much. But even just based on that, he's putting up Eichel numbers right now. Eichel's putting up with the Buffalo Sabres. Plus you get that prospect, plus you get the picks. It all really depends on how Eichel comes back from his injury. So that's going to be obviously the real deciding factor, as obvious as it is. But I think right now it actually looks pretty good for Buffalo. I don't know if they won, because we don't know, because Eichel's not playing. But I think it looks pretty good for Buffalo right now. So that's my opinion.
I'm going to kind of give a similar opinion. Obviously the package was very underwhelming from the Sabres, given that Huck and Krebs are nowhere near the caliber of a player that Eichel is and never will be the kind of caliber of a player. And no one draft with that pick is going to be anywhere near those kind of caliber of a player. But what it does is it gives Buffalo, it sheds the last pieces of that failure of a franchise era where they just couldn't do anything. It sheds that awful, those horrible years, those career make you want to shoot yourself years, right? So having a guy who is a Sabres fan from birth, kind of like John Tavares in Toronto, he may not be a superstar kind of caliber player, but having a guy who this is his hometown team, he loves this team, that's going to do great things. Not to mention, just based on how Vegas has structured their team, okay, they're going to get Eichel back, but then they're going to have to trade out so many players because they are going to be so much over the cap. It really didn't make any sense in a lot of ways for Vegas to do this, especially since Mark Stone makes similar money, Pacioretty makes similar money, Peter Angelo makes similar money, Shea Theodore makes similar money. You're going to have one good line, one good power play unit, and then it's just going to be shit. I think it's more leaning towards Buffalo.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be the voice of reason here. We have not seen Jack Eichel play one game. I am a huge fan of Alex Tuck. I was in Vegas, and that is hard for me to say because I'm not a fan of the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm pretty open. My bias is against them. They're another desert team. Can't like them. But yeah, I was very surprised when he was a part of that deal. He has a great contract. He's a big, tough guy who gets points. That is a playoff guy right there that you want on your team. I want that guy protecting my players and scoring out there. And it felt like they had everything. They had the great contract. They had this great player. Unfortunately, he had to be given up for Eichel. If Eichel can play as if he did in Buffalo, or even better, if he's playing with Stone and maybe might not be Pacioretty, Stone, Eichel, but if it's something like that. Who knows? This guy could go on a whole other level, and we'll be coming back next episode going, can't believe we ever said that. Then again, I've seen my stepdad get the very same operation, and his back's destroyed from it. Obviously, the quality of doctors might be a bit different from what Jack Eichel can get, but playing in the NHL, I don't know how that operation's going to deal with you. That is the big question we're still waiting on to see if he is going to be normal Jack or bad, but it's the Vegas way to bring in the big contracts. They like the high rollers. They like the big money guys in Vegas, and it fits their way, but you're right. They're going to have to give up a lot to even get Jack Eichel playing. So it all depends on how Jack Eichel plays and what Vegas has to give up just to get him to play. And Vegas is going to have to trade a lot of cap before they know if Eichel's ready to play or not. So this could end up looking disastrous for Vegas, or this could look like a stroke of genius from them. And I just think it's too early to say to even give an opinion. But now let's hear the deep dive. He's sitting up. He's ready to go. He's been holding this in for months. Let's hear it, Austin.
Yeah, I was quite upset about the trade when it happened. And not necessarily the return right off the bat. I was just, it hurts to lose the second overall pick. Suicide Boys got up to my top 10 musicians really quickly after that. But, looking at it reasonably, I was pretty happy. Tuck has always been a good player. I was very confused why they gave him up because he's one of those guys who he always put up good points and he's big and he's physical, but he never got the chance to play in the top six. They always had, Stone and Pacioretty and Riley Smith and Marchessault. So I was like, you have this great guy who has the potential and he's young. So I love that, and he's a Buffalo boy. I didn't know that until we got him, and just seeing how he talked about the franchise, I was like, oh, like he loves it here. And then we got Payne Krebs, who the year he got drafted, I was huge on him. He fell in the draft because he got an ankle injury his draft year, and it was one he would have bounced right back from. But he fell in the draft because of it. I thought he was a top 10 pick quality, so I was like, okay, we're getting some good pieces in some draft. But seeing how it's worked out, I love this trade for Buffalo. I think it's great. And I'm going to, you guys talked about the points. Tuck's been amazing for Buffalo. Krebs has been really good. He's been playing with an edge, because apparently he talked to the GM of the Vegas Golden Knights about the rumors. And he said, no, you're not untouchable. If anyone calls about you, hang up. And then they traded him. So he's been playing with like he's got an axe to grind, against the whole management. And he's young still. He needs a bit more development. But like that game against Philly recently, scored his first 2 goals and he looked phenomenal. So he's looking amazing if he can, pan out the way he's looking. That and him and Tuck, they'll have similar production to Eichel, and they're 2 players, right? You can spread that out a bit more in your roster. But the one thing too is just like the culture shift. And I always hate when hockey people say, "Oh, culture," but like it became very clear in Buffalo. There was a culture issue, and not just like, oh, we're changing things up, but like so many players this offseason came out and talked about how toxic that dressing room was. And like from high up players like Ristolainen and Ullmark to like, lower guys like AHL call-ups who were like, yeah, I came in there for 3 games and I was like, what is going on in here? And, a lot of it apparently was centered around Eichel. I love Eichel as a player and he's a quality guy. He was always good to the city of Buffalo, but when you get handed the keys to the castle when you're 18, it's a bit, I can see how that can be a tough locker room to be in. And so we're going away from that, and you just see like the locker room now, and like all the players are talking about, because most of the Sabres now are all guys who played in the minors, the young guys, and they're all living together now. And like just watching like Tuck interact with the young guys too, it's like I've never seen this team so happy in the past 10 years, and they're not even good. Like just like every time they do off ice footage, I'm like, wow, these guys like they're playing for each other, and they're playing for the jersey. They may not be winning, they're struggling, they're young and they're learning, but I think it was a huge culture change, and Tuck's been a huge part of that. I always said Dylan Cousins the next captain, but like if they threw the C on Tuck today, I'd be happy. So I think this is what Buffalo needed, both in the dressing room and on the ice. And I know Vegas is going to be good, but you're gutting your roster for one guy, and you're gutting your prospects. So what are they going to have in 5 years?
I think for Vegas, which is something we haven't seen yet, is they haven't had that taste of defeat. They have always been a good team, and it's Vegas. They always want to be on top. They want to be a very competitive team. They haven't dealt with hardship yet. Or when you're trading every prospect you have, every time a guy comes in and doesn't do well, Vegas gets rid of him right away. It's going to quickly turn into a place, in my opinion, that a lot of players are going to be scared of going to. They're going to go, I don't want to go to Vegas and get traded out within a year, and other players might be up for the challenge, but I think Vegas might be screwing themselves in the long term, especially because they have all these huge contracts now, where they're going to be great for a while, but when Vegas falls off, I think they're going to fall really hard when they do, because they just every year seem to trade everything they have. So
and not only that,
you can't be on top forever, right? Even Rome fell. So
yeah, and Vegas has built this almost like choker mentality where they get to these rounds and they just can't play anymore, and it's starting to develop in their personality of the players.
True.
And that's a really hard thing to shake. And they bring in Eichel, who has later in his career in Buffalo, like if Buffalo was down, he would just stop trying. So you're bringing in a guy who's already a bit of a defeatist as well, and you're adding them to this mindset. Like if they can get through and win the cup, then, it doesn't matter how good Buffalo does in the trade, it'll be seen as a home run for Vegas. But I can see this going very wrong. Like you were saying about your stepdad, like the 2 hardest injuries to return from in sports is knee and neck injuries. And he just had an experimental one that was never done. So, like, it's really hard to say how this is going to go for Vegas.
And even, like, just quickly following up on the Vegas thing in the locker room, they traded Fleury. I mean, that wasn't very long ago. And there was a big outcry with that and the way they handled it. And, for a while it was, we're doing it. Oh, we might not be doing it. We are doing it now. And I bet a lot of players don't like that. And especially, what was the player you just said who was told he was untouchable? Curbs?
Yeah, Payne Krebs.
Curbs as well. So if that is becoming a trend, where, and this is just two stories, but if this is becoming a trend where players are being told they're not going, or no, you're, buy a house, you're staying in Vegas, and then every year they're trading people, players aren't going to like that. And even their locker room's not going to like that. Trading out people who are big in the locker room just to bring in the new star every year. It's going to get old really quick, and they won't be able to do it forever.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. Like, it doesn't matter how good you are in Vegas, Shea Theodore is looking great, but what if in 2 years a different superstar is available? What if Edmonton keeps sucking? They're like, we're going to trade Draisaitl. Vegas is going to be in on it.
Exactly. And I did say earlier, if they keep doing all this nonsense, maybe players might not want to end up there, but there are going to be those players who fall in love with Sin City and want to party basically every day they're there. And I wonder if that brings a problem to their locker rooms, where you might have all these people going there to party rather than play hockey. And maybe that's what catches up on them by the end of the year if they're partying too hard. I know it would be hard to turn down the temptations of Vegas every night, especially when you have as much money as they do. I just see a lot of problems happening in Vegas in the future. Maybe I just want to see their downfall. Maybe that's why, but
everyone does.
And with Buffalo, I think it is a great story, and I think it's great to hear you say that, where you're like, the boys are enjoying themselves. As a Coyotes fan, I've definitely seen teams give up, and it's hard to watch when teams give up, but good for Buffalo if they've had that flush. Maybe it's bigger for them off the ice, and maybe that's what they needed.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It's just, we may not win a lot of games this year, but just seeing the guys happy with each other, that's all I could ask for. It's fun to actually watch them play together instead of just being miserable.
Well, I believe we've covered everything on the Eichel trade. I'll give everyone one last chance to get what they've been holding in out. Doesn't seem like there's anything left. In that case, thank you very much for watching the Doghouse podcast. It's great to be back. I'm glad the Coyotes won, so I could return to be here with you guys. We'll have a new video out hopefully not too long, and we can't wait to talk about the rest of the NHL season. So thanks for watching. Give a like and subscribe if you're interested, and see you later.